Talk about the issues leading up to the vote. The advanced polls will go live to where the leaders are watching results, and we will talk about the referendum as well. We'll introduce you to my guests in just a moment. But first, we want to walk you through quite a development on this election day. We were supposed to be able to start reporting results to you at 7 o'clock tonight. Well, now that will not happen. That time has been moved to 7:30, and that is because of events at one polling station in Stratford. Nicole Williams is there and has the details for us now. Walk us through this, Nicole.
Yeah, Louise, today, earlier, the polling location in Stratford, Quebec was actually closed. Elections P.E.I. says a threat was made against the polling location. I should mention that it's the only one in terms of the polls for the district. They are all located inside this building. So when the threat was made around 1 o'clock this afternoon, police were called. It was closed for about 2 hours while police conducted their investigation. Elections P.E.I. says that they managed to lock up and secure all the ballots that had been cast, so nothing was compromised there. Police came in with a sniffer dog, actually, that did a sweep through the building, and after that, it was deemed safe for voters to come back.
So obviously that's some good news there. They didn't find anything, but recap for us what the impact is of all of this.
Yeah, so Elections P.E.I. initially said that they would allow the station to be open, or the location to be open, until 9 o'clock. Now that's actually been shifted to 7:30, so people are being given an extra 30 minutes at this location. I will say that I just spoke to a returning officer who says that they were a little bit behind in terms of voter turnout because of the closure at the polling location, but they're now at 75% voter turnout for the district. The goal will be to get to 80. And when it comes to calculating the results of the election, it now means that all results from polls island-wide will be delayed until 7:30 as well. And as for the building itself, RCMP say that when they did their sweep through, they didn't find anything dangerous, but they have yet to discover the source of the threat.
All right, appreciate that. That is Nicole Williams reporting live for us in Stratford this evening. And before we get into our program in earnest, we want to take a moment to speak about a tragic loss during this campaign, the death of Green Party candidate Josh Underhay. The District 9 candidate and his young son died following a canoe accident, and it meant the end of campaigning by all political parties and the beginning of mourning for many who knew them and loved them. There will be no results tonight from District 9. A by-election will take place in the next few months there. And of course, everyone at CBC extends our sincere condolences to family, friends, and all those affected by the death of Josh and Oliver Underhay. Let's get to introducing you to my colleagues for our election night program. I'm joined live on set by two very familiar faces to our audience. They are political panelists Paul McNeil and Carrie Campbell. I'm just going to start, before we get into the results that will be coming in now at around 7:30 and the advanced polls, Josh Underhay and that tragedy.
Well, it's one of those tragedies in life that just is a gut check to anyone who hears it. It doesn't matter what party you're affiliated with, or even if you are affiliated with a party. It is a tragedy on every single level, and it was reassuring to see the political response. It was made in a sense of humanity and sincere feelings for the family, and the outpouring of support we've seen from every community, the musical community, the educational community, the general community. Ron Carraher, principal, worked with Josh at Birchwood, wrote a very moving piece on Facebook. So, you know, it was very much an island response to just a deep tragedy. Yeah,
and I mean, we've talked a lot about the civility during this campaign, Carrie, but I think people, particularly those outside of Prince Edward Island, looked at this and said, boy, they're all ceasing campaigning just after this happened.
Yeah, and to the great credit of Islanders and island politics, as you say, it's not always as congenial as we saw in this campaign. The elbows do sometimes get up more than they did this time, but you know, at a time when people across Canada were focused on what was happening here with this tragedy, everyone was struck with the fact that just the deep respect that was shown for what happened from Islanders of every political stripe. Everything shut down, and that was basically how this campaign ended. So again, just to the credit of all political parties here, how everyone reacted to this and just allowed this tragedy just to be sort of borne by the community.
And the Green Party leader, of course, was friends with Josh Underhay, fellow musicians. So this was really profoundly horrible for him. And he didn't say anything publicly until really the first time we saw him today was voting.
If you remember the Green family, which is one of those very tight families, you're not only partners in a political party, you are friends. And it's got to hurt for every one of them. Tonight, regardless of the outcome, there will be tears and there will be laughter, and there'll be more tears on all sides. It's just one of those immense tragedies that when it happens in such a public way, it's compounded. And
the referendum vote is going ahead in District 9 tonight, but not the vote for an MLA. That will be in a by-election, right, Carrie?
Yeah, so that will be, I think, for whoever forms a government would get the chance to call that. It has to be within 3 months, but we'll wait to find out who is going to represent District 9. Yeah,
so we haven't heard when that by-election will be, but tonight residents in D9 and District 9 can indeed vote, at least on the referendum part of tonight's election. So it's weighing heavy on everybody, I'm sure, as this election goes forward. But we're going to look at some of the locations for our coverage throughout the evening. We are live with all 4 parties tonight. So in the top left of your screen there, you'll see the CBC's Steve Bruce. He is with the Green Party in Charlottetown tonight. Our Brian Higgins is with Liberal leader Wade McLaughlin in Stanhope. And Brittany Spencer is in Hunter River with PC leader Dennis King throughout the night. Natalia Goodwin is at NDP headquarters in Charlottetown. So we are going to do a quick check-in with all of them, beginning tonight with the Green Party, and Steve Bruce is at the P.E.I. Brewing Company tonight. Steve.
Louise, no question, as you say, these last few days have been so difficult for the Green Party here on P.E.I. And you really get the sense looking around here tonight that Josh Underhay and his son Oliver very much front of mind, seeing a lot of those black bicycle pins being worn in honor of Josh and his son. But talking to party officials, they say they really expect tonight here at the P.E.I. Brewing Company to be a night of celebration, a chance to celebrate the life of Josh Underhay and his son, but also to celebrate whatever the outcome is for the Green Party here in this election. You look around here seeing so many video cameras. There's so much attention from the national media on P.E.I., on this P.E.I. election, because of the potential, at least, for the Green Party to form government. But you talk to Green Party officials and about what their expectations are for tonight, and really hard to get a clear answer. They say they expect to certainly win a few more seats, and they say whatever the outcome is tonight, they expect to be celebrating. So expecting a big crowd here at the P.E.I. Brewing Company. As for our leader, Peter Bevan Baker, he's watching with his family in the early part of the night as the results come in. Once the result is official in his district, he's expected to make his way here to talk to supporters. So will he be showing up here as the incoming premier of P.E.I., as the leader of the opposition, as part of some sort of coalition government? A lot of people are going to be here to see how this all plays out tonight, Louise.
Yeah, so much attention, as you say, from the national media on this part of the story as well. Thank you, Steve. We'll see you again after the polls close tonight. So we're going to move over now to Old Stanhope School. It's now known as Stanhope Place, and that is where Liberal leader Wade McLaughlin went to school, actually, and where he will be watching tonight. And our Brian Higgins is there. Brian.
That is a fact. Louise, he was in school here. He would have written a lot of tests here in school over the years, and he'll be back here tonight in his old school to face one of the biggest tests of his career. Now, I can tell you that earlier today, he went on something of a last-minute cross-province tour, dropping in on the headquarters of each and every Liberal district campaign office in the province. We were following that on social media. He started in Miscouche in the morning, in Sonny Gallant's Liberal candidate's district, went up to Tignish to see Hal Perry, started making his way east from there. Now, organizers tell me that last-minute cross-province tour was supposed to have taken place yesterday. Yes, yesterday, but it was postponed because of Friday's tragedy. Now, later this evening, Wade McLaughlin will be coming here to this 2-room schoolhouse. He and partner Duncan McIntosh will be with family and friends in the other classroom watching our broadcast, watching the results come in. His organizers tell me that he will join us here in the media room to share some thoughts with you, Louise, and with the viewers. After that, he'll make his way down to the Delta Hotel downtown Charlottetown to speak to Liberal supporters there. But the focus of the evening is in this schoolhouse where all the tests get written, and Wade McLaughlin is facing his big test tonight. Louise.
So his past and the future right there in that room. Thank you, Brian Higgins. That is Brian Higgins in Stanhope tonight. Now we move on to Hunter River District 15 and Harmony House Theatre. That is where PC leader Dennis King is gathered with a few friends and family tonight, and our Brittany Spencer is there too. Good evening to you, Brittany.
Hi, Louise. That's right. We're here at Harmony House, and it's right in the heart of Dennis King's district. Now, you may be able to see behind me a few people have started to trickle in, but Dennis King has not arrived yet, but we are told he is on his way and should be here soon. And now it makes a lot of sense that Dennis King would want to be here in his district to watch the results come in. He spent a lot of time here throughout his campaign, going door to door, trying to speak to as many voters as he could within his own district. But he's not going to be here all night. He is planning to head into Charlottetown, where he'll be at the Rod to join some of his fellow PC candidates. Now, Dennis King is no stranger to politics. He's been heavily involved for many years. In fact, he was the communications director for former PC Premier Pat Binns. But this is the first time he is running for office. And now that's a dynamic that has been very central to his campaign over the last several weeks, that he's somebody who knows how politics works, knows how government works, but he's also somebody who can bring a new, fresh perspective. So we'll be keeping a close eye on his district here, District 15, to see how that strategy plays out for him tonight.
All right, I appreciate teeing it up for us, Brittany. That's Brittany Spencer in Hunter River tonight. So finally we come back around to Charlottetown, and really just a few streets from our CBC studio is NDP headquarters, and that's where our Natalia Goodwin is this evening. So Natalia, tell us about Leader Joe Byrne and his plans for tonight.
Hi, Louise. Yes, I'm here at a small house on Olabar Street in Charlottetown, where it's starting to fill up a little bit here with supporters and campaign organizers, volunteers, all getting ready for Joe Byrne to arrive. Now, he will be arriving here a little bit later on. He has chosen to watch the results come in at home with his family and then come here to celebrate a hard-fought campaign here with his supporters. Now, that campaign, of course, as I said, has been hard-fought, but Joe Byrne is no stranger to an election night nerves. He has run twice federally for the NDP, so he's used to the feelings, I'm sure, going through his head right now. What's going to happen after he comes here, of course, is his supporters will hopefully congratulate him. The real focus of this campaign has been here in District 12 to try and get the NDP leader into the House. Supporters here say they really hope that happens, to have his voice in the House here. Now, of course, if you remember, this was a similar strategy to what the Greens did in the 2015 election, focusing on their leader's district. And we'll see later on tonight if it works here for the NDP.
Yeah, Joe Byrne certainly wants to have a seat in that house. Natalia, appreciate you teeing it up for us tonight. That's Natalia Goodwin reporting live in Charlottetown at NDP headquarters. So let's talk now a little bit more about the issues in this campaign. I have another set of people joining us tonight. We're very lucky here. They're in our lobby. There's the actual compass desk you're sitting at. CBC Radio's Matt Rainey is with our panel tonight. Matt, pleasure to have you with us tonight.
It is exciting to be here, Louise. I know it's going to be an exciting night, and I'm thrilled to be with this esteemed political panel here.
Esteemed.
You recognize
I'll take esteemed anytime.
Let's go for it.
Kathy Large, former legislative reporter and CBC Island Morning political panelist. Rick McLean, you know him, Louise, journalism instructor and CBC Compass political panelist. And Kathy, I'm going to start with you. What do you think were the key issues when people were going to cast their ballot? What were they thinking about?
Well, I'm not really sure what people were thinking about. There was no straight ballot question in this election. Let's talk about what the Liberals tried to convince everybody was the issue. And they wanted everybody to believe that the performance of the economy and how well Prince Edward Islanders were doing, and we're working, let's keep working, you know. And I'm not sure how that went over, because Peter Bevan Baker was able to say, You know, I'm not sure if every islander benefited from what's been going on in the economy here. He pointed out, for example, that if you look at the cost of food and the cost of housing, not everybody is happy with what they have been experiencing.
Well, and of course, what the Liberals were trying to do is basically change the subject, because the subject, I think, would be, is this a referendum on the Liberal Party and the fact that they've been in for 3 straight goes, and Islanders don't hand out a 4th one very often. So you're looking for the best message you can get, and the best message was the economy. But it was a very astute attack on that, although I use attack wise, you know, there weren't a lot of attacks going on here.
No.
But it was very astute in terms of trying to puncture the balloon by saying, well, it's good for some people here, but it's probably not good for you. Whether that's health or it's education or just a desire for change. And you know, for me, I always thought that the biggest issue floating along underneath all of this is the idea of change, and who does that mean? Does that mean, are you willing to vote, you know, for a third party?
What about those key issues, though, that we usually hear about during campaigns?
Well,
healthcare, education, housing, the economy.
They were all there, Matt, and I think a lot of people, if you asked them, they would come up with things that they were perhaps annoyed about with the Liberal government, and maybe that's also at the root of what's been going on in this campaign. People are digging up the baggage of the government that's trying to be elected into a 4th term, which is very unusual in Prince Edward Island political history.
And what do you think of the tone overall of this campaign, Rick?
Well, you know, this was fascinating because right at the beginning, when the writ was dropped, the Premier comes out with this comment. It was a pretty good punch thrown at Peter Bevan Baker, this idea that you're a professional politician. I thought, well, he's a professional candidate, but I'm not sure he's a professional politician. He's only been in for the one go. And that was about it. There wasn't a lot after that, and that means that all of the parties sat down and decided, because this would be a calculation, that we're going to play nice. For the Liberals, it was probably, they took a look around and went, we don't want to look like the bad guy. For the Greens, that's not their brand, right? Their brand is to be the good guys.
Yeah. And I think Dennis King, coming on the scene just 2 months before the election, he decided to position himself as the person that was going to get along with everyone and be the collaborator. It may, in fact, become a very important role for him later in the evening. We'll have to wait and see what the results are like.
Yeah, there is a lot to watch for here tonight. Any thoughts on that, Rick, what we might see when the advanced polls numbers start coming in?
Well,
we only have a couple of seconds.
It's very interesting because now it looks like we're going to get a lot of information at once. Ideally, you look at the advanced polls, and if it's big for the Reds, then that means the Liberals delivered on their machinery. Now we're not going to know because there may be a lot of stuff come at once.
All right, we're going to go back to Louise in the studio.
Thank you very much to all of you. We'll be back to you in just a few minutes from now. So you heard Rick and you heard Kathy, Rick and Matt. They're talking about the issues throughout this campaign. We have, of course, been asking you as well about what's on your mind during this election campaign. And our CBC cameras were from one end of the island to the other. And here's what some of you had to say.
Anything to do with health issues, it should be #1 priority.
Just with the shortages and the closures at the hospital in Alberton lately.
I think the main issue is healthcare, especially mental health.
More jobs.
One thing is the unemployment.
If people can create more jobs, that's always a really big thing on the island.
Whether there are going to be a lot of long-term, good-paying jobs.
I want people to stick to their word. If this is your platform, stick to it. Class sizes. As a teacher, it's a struggle.
Schools are really important to me. My kids are 10 and 12.
We don't have any emergency service in our hospital for quite some time.
I went there not long ago and I was there for 12 hours, which is crazy, really.
Well, we need physiotherapy. We don't have any right now at the hospital here.
Some people still don't even have a provincial doctor, right?
We really, really need a doctor and nurse practitioner.
Farmers, they lost a lot of crops last year, and whoever is going to do that part, it'll mean an awful lot.
Like, I'm 63, and for me, housing, seniors housing is big.
I would like to see them build a nursing home for the seniors here.
Finding a place to rent that they can afford.
Rental crisis right now. Like, I'm living in a motel right now because there's nothing available.
Yeah, like student loans and everything, and the amount of time you have to actually wait to pay back your student loans.
A lot of the community have a lot of mental health issues.
We have a sorry lack of proper mental health care, and we need it.
Mental health care is a big one for me because I have depression
I'm also a big mental health and health person. I think there's a great need for that on the island.
Personally, yes, I believe affordable housing is probably the most prominent issue.
Well, I'd like to have more money coming in. Old age pension ain't very much.
It seems the price of the apartments going higher and higher.
Rents keep going up. Nothing else goes up. Everything's going up. And it's getting tough.
So let's have a look now at some of the key races in this campaign and some of the districts we'll be watching throughout the night. And there are quite a few of them, to be honest, but we're going to start now with District 3. So Paul McNeil.
District 3, the Tories have an Eastern Bloc. This was formerly held by Al Roach, minister, long-serving Liberal minister. He's since retired. Daphne Griffin is holding the Liberal flag banner. Corey Deagle is running for the Tories. He won over 3 other candidates for the Tory nomination. This will be a riding that could go either way, depending. It was not as impacted by the amalgamation discussion there, but both the Tories and the Liberals see it as sort of a must-win for long-term success tonight.
Okay, what about District 5, Paul?
Well, Mary Ellen McGuinness, who lost the coin toss in the last election, she is running against Randy Cooper. This riding has changed significantly since the last election. It was primarily rural. Now it is primarily Stratford and area. Randy Cooper is a former Stratford town councillor, finance chair, 8 balanced budgets. So it is sort of anyone's guess. It'll be interesting to see if a Green vote shows up. Does it show up in Stratford with Michelle Beaton, who's considered a strong local candidate? And
Mary Ellen McInnes does not want another coin toss this year.
I don't think anyone wants another coin toss.
No, I don't think so. Let's move on to District 12 tonight. What are your insights of District 12, and why is this one of the districts to watch?
Look, this is a 4-way race. You've got Richard Brown, who's long-serving, has won multiple elections, long-time cabinet minister, notedly gave the finger to an Islander who yelled honor the vote. Tim Kaiser, popular Charlottetown police officer. Carla Bernard, strong Green candidate, and Joe Byrne. The NDP have basically put it all in to get Joe Byrne elected. They've raised money. He's actually, for the first time in party history, been able to draw a small salary. And they actually have, the party has reasonably high expectations that Joe Byrne may squeeze something out tonight.
District 19, Borden Kincora, that's Jamie Foxx is the incumbent there.
If the Greens are going to make any inroads in rural PEI, it may happen in a riding like District 19. Jamie Foxx is the Tory incumbent. He would be considered a bit on the right side of the Conservative ideology. Matthew McFarlane is a very strong Green candidate, a lawyer in Summerside, lives in Augustine Cove. Jamie Stride is a good Liberal candidate, and it could be a 3-way fight.
District 21, Summerside Wilmot, and that is incumbent, the Liberal incumbent there is Chris Palmer.
The Green Party has high expectations that Summerside and area may be fertile ground.
It's one big area to watch right tonight with the Greens.
It absolutely is a big area. Chris Palmer is the incumbent. He won in a by-election a couple of years ago, defeated Lynn Lund, the Green candidate. Lynn Lund is the vice leader of the Green Party. Tyler DeRoche is a former Summerside City Councillor, active in hockey and harness racing. So again, potentially a tight 3-way race.
And another district you want to look at is Tyne Valley Sherbrooke, and that is Paula Bigger, the Liberal incumbent there. All
3 parties, the main parties, I guess, tonight, the Liberals, the Tories, and the Greens, say 23 could be one to watch. Paula Bigger is a Minister of Transportation. Obviously, in rural PEI, that historically has been a portfolio with a lot of strength at the ballot box. Hilton McClellan, former Resident of the Year, Citizen of the Year in Tyne Valley, dairy farmer, and Trish Altes is considered very strong Green candidate in that area.
Okay, Paul McNeil, thanks for your insight on that. So those are some of the districts to keep an eye on tonight as we walk you through the election. We're going to get our panel to talk about what they will be watching for. So we're going to head back out to the lobby again, and CBC's Matt Rainey.
Thanks so much, Louise. We were watching along as we were running through those districts to watch. What about you, Rick? What are some of the districts you're watching?
Well, I checked off some of those. Another one I was thinking about was Evangeline, because up there what you're looking at is you've got a cabinet minister. And if the red wall is going to hold on that end of the province, then if we start to see that wall starting to crumble, that could be a telling moment. Another one, of course, is an open one, which is 14, West Royalty. That one's wide open. I believe McNeely there last time ran for the NDP. Now he's running for the Liberals, so he's made his bet. He lost it really time on advance poll. Everybody looked like he might have it until the advance poll. So those would be two individual ones I think would be especially interesting.
What about for you, Kathy?
Well, we have to watch the leaders' ridings. There's 4 leaders. Let's start with Peter Bevan Baker. Most people believe that he will win that riding again, especially considering the polling results leading into the election. There's Dennis King in Brackley-Hunter River, and I heard Paul McNeil in the radio panel predict that that riding wasn't necessarily a given for Dennis King, and I'm sure the party has been working very hard to make sure their new leader is elected for the first time.
Echoes of last election, right?
Well, yeah, they can't have that happen again if they can avoid it, for sure. And in Charlottetown Victoria Park, there's Joe Byrne, who's in a very tight race there with Richard Brown, and that was mentioned already. And then, of course, you have the Premier in Stanhope Marshfield.
Which he could be in for a real fight there. That's a good candidate or two they're running against him.
He's been running behind his party in terms of popular vote. Right. He has a very good progressive conservative fighting for that riding, Blois Thompson. He's a Holstein breeder, I believe. Very well known and campaigning very hard. So the Premier is under some pressure for sure.
Now, we look at some of the advanced polling numbers, 36% of people casting ballots already. When we get those results starting to come in, we touched on this already, Rick, but what are some of the potential storylines that could happen there?
Well, I think the biggest one is if you could look at the map of the ridings and start to look for colors. Because if on your right, I guess on your screen in the east, if you're not seeing a lot of blue, and on the left of your screen in the west, if you're not seeing a lot of red, then that means the two fortresses of the two typical traditional parties are starting to crumble. Ideally, what they would want to do is sort of hold on to their parts of the province and then fight over the middle. So if you're only seeing, for instance, green based on the polls, fighting it out in the middle, then the Liberals and the Conservatives have managed to hold their own ground. If those start to change, then they're in trouble.
Go ahead, Kath.
Well, I was going to say the polls show the Greens building, of course. They might have a tide. The other thing I'll be watching for is how strong is that vote for the Greens in those early polls? Are we going to have that, it's been such a rainy day, I can't get water out of my head. If the tide is rising, how fast is it rising?
Well, and the question is the popularity of Peter Bevan Baker, does that cover over by district? Does that translate?
Well, it becomes the coattails, right? The idea of, is there a coattail? If there is, how wide is it? How long is it? How many people can jump on and ride on it? Is this going to be sort of a Jack Layton in Quebec where people got elected that I'm sure people voted for, they didn't even know who the person was. Now, it's not quite true here. People know who they are, and they have some excellent candidates, but I think they're counting on the coattails.
Well, I was going to say, I listened to Peter Bevan Baker in an interview say it is going to be an historic evening. It may not turn out to be the one that the Green Party really wants, but it isn't going to be nothing that happens here tonight.
There are many potential storylines. We're watching them all, and we're heading back to Louise in the studio.
We're watching those same storylines, Matt, and there is a lot to watch for tonight. So we're just over 31 minutes until we start to get results coming in. Final thoughts to my panel here in the studio before we get to the head of the top of the clock there and invite a national audience.
Well, I'll be watching tonight to see about the efficiency of the vote. On paper, the Tories may have the best shot going in, but if the Greens' vote turns out to be efficient, they may make inroads, and the Liberals need to hold what they have.
Okay, Kerry, your final thoughts before we hit the top there.
Yeah, just, allowing that anything could happen. If this is going to be a change vote, as Kathy on the panel there was talking about the rising tide, I was thinking back to 2007. There was a Guardian, the poll, the story, the title was Red Tide Rising, the headline, and we saw all kinds of upsets, the Liberals knocking off, incumbent PC cabinet ministers in that election. PC's kind of decimated. If it's a change election, we could see things like that, but in a three-party race. So some things that we've never seen in island politics before.
We're as excited as you are at home. We have more viewers joining us in just a few minutes from now. So that's at 7 o'clock from right across the country on CBC News Network and on radio. We'll be right back with more of our election special. P.E.I. Votes 2019 continues in just a moment here on CBC. Good evening. Thank you for joining us on election night here on Prince Edward Island. I'm Louise Martin, live in Charlottetown, and welcome to our viewers on CBC Television and those of you now joining us on CBC News Network and CBC Radio tonight. We're about half an hour away now from results in what could be a historic election here on P.E.I. Over the next 30 minutes, we will talk about many of the issues in this campaign and have a look behind the scenes for you as well. But first, we want to talk about quite a development on this election day today. We were supposed to be able to start reporting results to you about now, 7 o'clock Atlantic time tonight. That is not going to happen. That time has been moved to 7:30 Atlantic time, and that's because of events at one polling station. Nicole Williams is there, and she has the details for us now live. Hey, Nicole.
Hey, Louise. So yes, voting here was delayed in Stratford-Quebec around 1 o'clock this afternoon. Elections P.E.I. says a threat was made against the polling location. I should mention that it is the district's only polling location, so RCMP had to be called. The building was shut down for about 2 hours while police investigated the building. Elections P.E.I. says it was able to lock up and secure all ballots that had been cast up to that point, so nothing had been compromised, but police had to bring in a sniffer dog to do a sweep of the building, and after that, it was deemed safe for voters to come back to cast their ballots.
And Nicole, recap for us what this impact is on the vote and the results coming out tonight.
Yeah, so Elections P.E.I. said they were originally going to keep this location open until 9 o'clock. That's been changed to 7:30. So voters in this district only have just under 30 minutes to get their ballot in. I will say that I just spoke to a returning officer who said on last check that they were behind in terms of voter turnout, but are now at up to 75% voter turnout in this district. The goal is to get up to 80%. So it seems that they're all cut up, or that they're on track to reach their goal within the next half an hour. In terms of finding out the results of the election, all polls island-wide will now be counted at 7:30. So until this location is closed, we won't find out any of the results until then. Now, in terms of the safety of this building, police say they didn't find anything dangerous when they did their investigation, but they are still investigating the origin of the threat.
All right, Nicole, thank you very much. So just under half an hour to get the vote out there in Stratford-Quebec. Thank you for that live in Stratford. We also want to take a moment to speak about a tragic loss that happened during this election campaign, and that is the death of Green Party candidate Josh Underhay. He was the District 9 candidate, and he and his young son died following a canoe accident. So it meant the end of campaigning by all political parties and the beginning of mourning for many who knew them and loved them. There will be no results tonight from District 9. There will be a by-election that will take place in the next few months. Those in District 9 can vote on the referendum this evening. Now let's get to introducing you to our cast of characters for our Election Tonight program. I'm joined live on our set by two faces who would be familiar to our island audience. They are our political panelists, Paul McNeil. Good to have you here tonight. And P.E.I.'s political reporter, Carrie Campbell.
Thrilled to be here, Louise.
So this has been an election campaign like none other, marked by different things. We've seen tragedy in this campaign. We've seen this tonight, a threat at a polling station. What are we in for this evening? Could be a long night.
Well, it could be a long night. We really don't know, and that's the one variable. I mean, in our island's history, we've played this game of ping pong between Liberals and Tories, and Islanders were pretty adept at figuring out when we were angry enough at Liberals that it was time to change to the Tories. But the Green Party, after electing a single MLA 4 years ago, now have two in the provincial legislature, has thrown a monkey wrench into the old school way of thinking. They're leading the polls. A lot of people think that they can make inroads on a significant number of ridings, and that's caused not distress, some distress in Liberal and Tory land, but certainly for people like Carrie and I, a lot of fun to watch.
Well, speaking of the polls, you know, that it really has attracted national attention, those polling numbers and the fact that a lot of people were talking about potentially the first Green government on P.E.I., but popularity in those polls doesn't always translate into number of seats, right, Carrie?
Yeah, and so that's what we're looking to see. I mean, what the talk is, you know, the Green Party doesn't have the get out the vote apparatus that the more established parties have, so how can they compete on that level? But really, there is no outcome possible tonight which does not represent some sort of historic milestone, at least for P.E.I., maybe for the rest of the country. If we get a fourth-term Liberal government, island voters have been very stingy awarding those in the past, so there's a milestone. If the PCs get into some kind of government after 12 years in the political wilderness, there's another milestone for island politics. If the Green Party forms some kind of government, there's a Canadian or maybe a world milestone there. And also, we've never had any kind of minority government on PEI elected. So, with this three-party race, a strong possibility we could see that. All the exciting possibilities that we've never seen before on PEI. Just great to be here.
Well, I'm glad to have you guys. Thank goodness you're here with me tonight to help us navigate what's happening. But Paul, you're a political junkie.
Sad, isn't it?
No, it's not. But this must be just riveting to see. Have you seen an election campaign like this before?
Nothing. And I think the rise of the Greens is directly attributable to public frustration with 12 years of Liberal administration and 12 years of watching the Tories sort of flounder from one crisis to another in opposition. Now, the Tories seem to be doing a pretty decent job of trying to right the ship on a pretty short timeline, but the Greens have sort of caught the imagination because they are not the Greens that you would stereotypically think. It's not just the environment. They're fiscally conservative. They're socially responsible. They're obviously environmentally conscious. But it's a different type of Green under Peter Bevan Baker.
Yeah, so much to watch for. Let's get a look now at some of the locations for our coverage tonight. We're live with all four party leaders this evening. And so just in a moment there, you'll see in the top left of your screen, that is CBC's Steve Bruce. He is with the Green Party tonight in Charlottetown. Brian Higgins with Liberal leader Wade McLaughlin in Stanhope. Brittany Spencer is in Hunter River with PC leader Dennis King tonight. And Natalia Goodwin is at NDP headquarters in Charlottetown. So we will be back to them as the evening goes along tonight. There's another vote. The vote for candidates is not the only one going on Prince Edward Island. There's also the referendum to decide the future of our voting system. The system on offer is a version of proportional representation called mixed member proportional. Now, at the very start of the campaign, we created a video to help people understand it and understand how it's different from our current system. That way, you could be more informed. So before we talk about the referendum vote, we're going to show you that video again. It is done by our own Carrie Campbell. Have a look.
In the upcoming provincial election, Islanders will also be voting in a referendum. It asks, should Prince Edward Island change its voting system to a mixed-member proportional voting system? Canada has long used the first-past-the-post system. We know it well because we use it in our provincial and federal elections. In this system, the island has 27 districts, and the candidate with the most votes in each district wins the seat. Candidates run for a political party or as independents, and the party with the most candidates elected forms government. Things work differently under the proposed mixed-member proportional system. Under MMP, two voting systems are mixed, as the name mixed-member proportional suggests. In this system, voters choose candidates in 18 larger districts and 9 candidates to represent the island as a whole. This means Islanders would make 2 choices on a mixed-member ballot instead of 1. The first vote would be for a district candidate using the first-past-the-post model. The candidate with the most votes will represent the district. Then voters move to the second part of their ballot. In this section, voters choose one person and only one from candidate lists supplied by the parties. A vote on this part of the ballot determines the overall popular vote. The 9 island-wide seats are then distributed, taking into account how many seats parties got in the district vote. The idea is to have the 27 seats in the House reflect the overall popular vote. Those are the 2 choices Islanders will have on electoral reform.
So that question again, should Prince Edward Island change its voting system to a mixed-member proportional voting system? You've been asked for a yes or a no answer. So let's talk about the criteria for this vote. It's not as easy as it might sound. It's not just 50 plus 1. And Carrie, you've become our resident expert
And I just want to say, I got way too much credit for that video. I have spent a lot of hours over the years figuring out and explaining different electoral models on P.E.I, but that was just my voice. There was a whole team of people that put that together. I just maybe explain how we got here.
Let's do
this
that.
is the third vote on electoral reform on P.E.I in the last 15 years. If this was a 3-game hockey series, it would be tied right now at a game apiece. The last vote, a plebiscite in 2016, we chose among 5 different models, including the current first past the post, mixed member proportional. MMP won that vote, and that set us up for this, what the Premier's called a binding referendum. What he put in place, the legislation, there's 2 thresholds, which he said would make the results binding. Now, we've learned technically this can't be binding on the future government.
I said binding-ish.
Binding-ish. I know, that's what the commissioner said that one time, yeah. But all the leaders have said that they will honor the vote. So first of all, it needs to get 50% plus 1 of the overall vote, a straight majority. But then there's a second threshold. It has to win in 17 of P.E.I.'s 27 districts. Has to get that majority vote in those districts as well. So we went to all the party leaders and asked them, first of all, if they would honor the vote this time, because that became an issue in 2016. They all said yes. Also, though, 3 of the 4 party leaders said they would also honor the dual thresholds, even though, for example, 3 of those leaders, the Greens, the NDP, the PCs, all say they support mixed member proportional. This is seen as something that makes it more difficult for mixed member to win in this case. But the PC, Liberal, and Green leaders all said they would observe those 2 thresholds. It was only NDP leader Joe Byrne who said, you know what, if there's a majority vote in favor of changing the electoral system, then the new legislative assembly that comes in has to have a discussion about doing that.
Right.
So,
of course, we had a referendum commissioner. He held information sessions around the province to sort of educate people on this, because there was, Carrie, and just quickly before we move on, a lot of confusion around what MMP actually was.
Yeah, and I think there might still be some confusion. I had people reaching out to me through my Facebook over the last few days, friends and acquaintances, just asking,
last-minute
questions? How it works? Kind of cramming, before the vote. I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever, if we keep having these votes, who knows? Maybe the series ends tonight, but I don't know if we'll ever get to where everyone feels comfortable with understanding it.
Well, there's math involved, and that's where it can throw people.
You don't have to get stuck on the math.
You don't. I know, and that's what they were hoping at home tonight. If you're watching, they were really hoping you weren't going to focus in on the math and just focusing on what this actually means. So let's get our panel to weigh in here as well. We'll go back out to the lobby again and the CBC's Matt Rainey. Matt.
Thanks so much, Louise. I'm here with our esteemed panel, Kathy Large and Rick McLean. People looking at this as an historic night on Prince Edward Island. This referendum, one of the reasons why. And Rick, what do you think? Yes and no sides, how did they do communicating their message, getting the word out?
It was a struggle, and Carrie's absolutely right. They had a very relatively limited amount of time that people were, I think, really paying attention. As the election got called, I think the interest started to build up. So I think there was that struggle. It has a complicated sound about it, so people might have been a bit confused. And I think there was something else at play here. If the polls are right and a large number of people are thinking maybe it's okay now to vote for a third party, that might be a sense of that might be enough change for one election. And you know what? We'll just sort of go with what we know on the other one, and we'll think about that for another day.
What do you think, Kathy?
I have the opposite view on this. It seems to me that if you're willing to vote for the Green Party, you might also be ready for change in the electoral system. And I did hear people say, I'm going to vote Green and I'm going to vote yes. And whether or not that's going to be enough people to actually make a change, because the threshold is pretty high, let's face it, and that came out of the legislature, I believe, that came up with the legislation under which this referendum is being held. But I think it's also fair to reiterate what Carrie said, which is that the 3 of the 4 party leaders came out in favor of this system.
Whether their parties, or at least in the case of the Conservatives, whether the party's in favor of it is
fully
different
in favor.
from the... Yeah.
It doesn't matter, it's they make it sound not revolutionary to go for this system.
But what about that confusion factor?
Well, I think where you might see either confusion or you might see a sense of urban versus rural. This may be something where in the urban areas where Greens are expected to do well, they might also do well in the referendum. Mm-hmm. Where in the outlying areas, in the non-rural, in the rural areas, you might see people who are a bit more traditional, a bit more cautious. And because you have to win, I think it's 17 districts out of 27 to make this thing happen, that could be, you know, the crucial moment in this whole exercise.
And I think there was a campaign to try to convince rural people that they would have less influence in a new system, that because of the way the party lists would be drawn up, that it would be likely that urban people would be chosen for that list because there's more people, they would be voting more for people that they knew. And who's to say? I mean, I don't think anybody really knows, but I think there was a concerted effort on the part of the No campaign to make sure that people in rural PEI thought that it was not good for them.
And we were hearing from Carrie, you know, people trying to ask questions over Facebook, trying to get their sense of this. What have you been hearing from people, Rick?
Well, it is a sense of, you know, I know there's something out there, but I don't really understand what the math is. I don't understand what the system is.
And yet there's people who are highly informed on this too, who know
well,
it
and,
back
and we
forward.
saw that a couple of years ago in the first vote, where the very motivated voters showed up and said that we want the change. So I think that part of the vote's a given. I think it's, can they bring in enough of the vote from other areas, from people that are just either unsure or willing to be convinced, and that's going to be a bit of a sell.
And because this has been an exciting three-way race, does this at all fall behind it all, Kathy? Do you think it's been a big enough part of the discussion?
I think it did sort of get lost in the shuffle for much of the actual campaign. But Matt, remember, this is the third time we've all been asked in PEI what we want to do about this. It's not like it's a new topic. It's been here. We've voted on it twice before in various forms. I think the campaign that was trying to make people feel like this is some unusual idea that they're only hearing for the first time probably didn't go over very well with people. And if you don't know, vote no. That didn't go over well with the public either at the forums.
Well, that's a terrific point. One of my students sort of fired this off to me from the journalism program, and it turned into a meme that said, "Don't let a sign call you stupid," because the idea was that if you're not smart enough to understand it, just either don't vote or vote no. So there might be an age element that's going to play out in this, where younger voters may be willing to look for the change.
Just one of the many things we're watching tonight. We're going to go back to the studio and Louise.
Thanks very much, guys. Well, we've mentioned several times that this could be a historic election night, but here on PEI, we've actually had many election nights with firsts in them. So we thought we'd take a look back at some of them. In fact, we went all the way back 2.5 decades. Take a trip down memory lane now with our Nancy Russell.
In 1993, Catherine Kalbeck became the first and only female premier of Prince Edward Island. The Liberals took every seat but one, winning in 31 of 32 districts. PC leader Pat Mella was the only member of the opposition.
It's a wonderful night for the Liberal Party on Prince Edward Island.
1996 marked another first, the end of multi-member constituencies. Instead, single members were now elected in 27 districts. The Liberals had been in power for 10 years and lost to the PCs under new leader Pat Binns. For the first time, a party other than the Liberals or the Tories won a seat. NDP leader Herb Dickinson was sent to the legislature.
It's such a wonderful thing to happen. And I'm only one cog in the wheel here.
In April 2000, Binns and the PCs were back in a landslide, taking 26 of 27 seats. The Liberals under rookie leader Wayne Carew only won one district, that of Ron McKinley. The NDP increased its popular vote, but Dickinson lost his seat. The 2003 election made history for its weather. Hurricane Juan hit. 2/3 of the province didn't have power. The damage was considerable. But this is PEI, and people still went out to the polls. Voter turnout was 83%. Binns formed a third consecutive majority government, a first for the party. And the new Liberal leader won his seat, Robert Giz, following in the footsteps of his father.
You know, those were exciting times, and my sister there, she should be awfully young.
Giz became premier in 2007 with a big victory, 23 of 27 seats. The Green Party came onto the political scene for the first time and took more than 3% of the vote, beating out the NDP for third place. In 2011, the Liberals won a second majority government with 22 seats. The Progressive Conservatives remained the official opposition, but the Greens and NDP both increased their vote. 4 years ago, in 2015, the Liberals won a third consecutive majority, this time under Wade McLaughlin. The PCs took 8 seats, but leader Rob Lance lost in his own district.
We did it!
The Green Party made history, taking its first seat in the legislature with leader Peter Bevan Baker.
So let's check in with our reporters who you saw a little earlier this evening. We'll hear from all of them, beginning with the Green Party tonight. Steve Bruce is at the P.E.I. Brewing Company Green headquarters this evening.
Yeah, Louise, a lot of people really starting to file into the P.E.I. Brewing Company here now. A lot of nervous energy as folks wait for these results to start coming in. And really a scene here that the Green Party of P.E.I. is just not used to seeing. There's so many people here, so many video cameras, so many journalists from all over the country. You can really see how the national media has really latched on to this P.E.I. election because of the potential for the Greens to form government. So a lot of expectations from the national media. Then you talk to the Green Party officials themselves, and they say their expectations, they hope to get a few more seats for sure, and anything beyond that, well, we'll just have to wait and see. They say whatever the result is here tonight is going to be a cause for celebration for the Green Party. They've got a band lined up here ready to go. But as I say, as it stands right now, a lot of people sitting here nervously, just waiting to see how this all plays out, Louise.
Like so many other people tonight, Steve, thank you very much. We'll see you again after the polls close and we start to get some results. Let's move next to the old Stanhope School. It's now known as Stanhope Place, and that is where Liberal leader Wade McLaughlin actually went to school and where he is watching this evening, and Brian Higgins is there live. Brian.
Yeah, Louise, while we were doing that foreshot of all the reporters, there was a sudden round of applause that I could hear, and that's because Premier Wade McLaughlin stepped into the building just at that time. He is in the Stanhope Centre here meeting supporters. Party workers are here. They're using the chalk on the old school chalkboard to start tallying the votes, and definitely the tempo and the mood has definitely taken a step upwards now that the candidate in District 8, Wade McLaughlin, is in the building. Back to you, Louise.
He's in the building. All right. Thank you very much, Brian. That's Brian Higgins live for us in Stanhope. Now to Hunter River District 15 and Harmony House Theatre. That is where PC leader Dennis King is gathered with a few friends and some family members this evening. And our Brittany Spencer is there as well. Good evening to you, Brittany.
Hi, Louise. Well, what we thought was going to be a somewhat small gathering of family and friends is starting to feel like a real viewing party over here. There have been people filing through the door, lots of supporters, and Dennis King is here. He arrived shortly after we last spoke, and he's sort of been making rounds around the room, greeting everybody, and everybody seems very excited to see him. There's lots of blue t-shirts, blue hats, and the energy in here, it seems that everybody is really excited and looking forward to seeing those results roll in. I've spoken to some of his campaign managers, and I'm hoping to speak with them a little later on.
That's great. And I guess they're hoping all those blue t-shirts and blue hats translates into a blue district tonight. Thank you, Brittany. Finally, we come back around to Charlottetown this evening, just really a few streets from our studio here at CBC News. NDP headquarters. Our Natalia Goodwin is there tonight. So Natalia, a little bit more quiet there right now. Tell us about what's up there at NDP headquarters.
Yeah, a little bit more quiet here right now. They're actually being very polite, so I can do this hit with you, Louise. But they're actually quite jovial and excited to see these results start to come in. You know, there's a lot of volunteers and supporters rolling in here throughout the night. They are hopeful. We just saw the piece about history here on the island, and they're hoping to make history again here at the NDP headquarters. Of course, the last time they had a seat in the legislature being back in 1996 with Herb Deckison, who is also running in this election again. So they're hopeful in his district. They're also very hopeful here in District 12, where the leader Joe Byrne is running. Again, this has been the focus of the campaign to get their leader in the House. You may have seen many signs around the Charlottetown area saying just that, put the leader in the House. So that's sort of been a mantra for this campaign. He has not arrived here yet. He has chosen to watch most of the results with his family at home, and then he will come here and be welcomed with open arms and cheers, I'm sure, as soon as he arrives, Louise.
Yeah, he's been working very hard to work those districts and those doors. Thanks, Natalia. That's Natalia Goodwin reporting live for us in Charlottetown. So we're inching ever so much closer to 7:30, and when we'll start to hopefully get some results very quickly after that, just a few minutes away there. Before that, though, a look behind the scenes right here at CBC on P.E.I, because there have been a lot of people working a lot of very long hours to put tonight's program together for you at home. And there's a lot of equipment in the building that isn't usually here as well. Take a look.
In 5, 4, 3, 2,
But you haven't gone.
1.
My name is Tracy Lightfoot. I am normally the producer of Compass on CBC, and for the last couple of weeks I've been the producer for the CBC's Election Night program.
I appreciate that. Natalia Goodwin, she will be reporting live.
Basically everyone in our station has been working in some form or other on the election show.
I'll keep you posted as to when we're coming to you. Perfect, thanks man.
It's been my job straight through for a number of weeks now to work both on the debate and the election night program. A boatload of work goes into this every 4 years, and so we're ready for it when it comes.
My name is Bob Weers, and I'm the senior producer for elections for CBC News across the country. One of my main jobs is to organize the decision desk and make the call on the election for any constituency or district that we're in. We have a team of people, decision desk editors, who are looking at all the ridings, the polling numbers, the riding histories, all the candidates, and then they're looking at the first results. And one of the first things they're going to look for is popular vote. If we have a single party with a big lead in the popular vote, like 40% or so, then we're going to be fairly confident that that party is on its way to forming a government. However, if the popular vote is split 3 ways or far below 40% and nobody's at that target, then we're going to start looking for minority government possibilities, and once we're into that, it's who has the most seats, and it could come right down to individual districts or even one individual district tonight.
10 seconds.
My name is Duncan Blair. I'm the operations manager for Prince Edward Island and New Brunswick. It's a big setup. You know, we've got additional cameras in our studio here because we have a bigger setup in there. It's usually one host. Now we have 3 people on set. We also have an analyst set, so that requires its cameras. We've got several transmission vehicles here. We've got 2 SAT trucks here that helps us uplink our signals. It takes a lot of resources, a lot of coordination, and a lot of teamwork in order to pull this off.
There are so many little bits and pieces on the night of that you need to think of just off the top of your head and be ready for any scenario that happens. But you can't plan for everything, so you need to have a plan B, a plan C, and in our case, possibly a plan D, depending on what happens throughout the course of the night.
So one of the pieces of equipment is this camera you see. Well, you don't see it, but the one that's moving right now, it's called the jib. And I got to say, I love the jib. I wish it could stay behind, but it goes away after this election. And speaking of which, it's just 2 minutes and 30 seconds just about till we start to hopefully get some results coming in. So Paul, some final thoughts before we hit that.
A lot of people are talking about whether history can be made. Islanders have never shied away from making history in provincial elections. Joe Giz was the first premier of non-European descent elected in the country. Catherine Colbeck was the first female elected in a provincial election in the country. Wade McLaughlin was the first gay male premier in the country. And Peter Bevan Baker is the great-great-grandson of a father of Confederation, George Brown, who founded the Globe and Mail newspaper.
There you go, making history all over the place. Carrie, your final thoughts before we hit the front.
You know, we talk about how unprecedented this campaign was, and it really was. Yep. But I just want to throw in, it was kind of a bit ho-hum at times, too. There's a bit too much civility sometimes. Now, there's worse things that can happen in your election campaign. I'm not complaining. We'll take this over some other problems you could have. That said, though, that's just kind of setting the stage for what I think is going to be a very exciting evening of getting these results in. I would say Prince Edward Islanders should probably buckle up for this. Maybe the rest of Canada, you might want to buckle up, too, because I think we're going to start to see some races in ways we haven't seen before, just in terms of the way these three-way races might play out here. And this last 30 minutes, the delay to get the results, for so many Islanders, this has been like the longest 30 minutes ever because they've been waiting so much for this. It's felt really long sitting here. I'm ready.
And the evening is really just beginning. So as you say, the good stuff is going to start now. So as Carrie said, buckle up. The polls are closing. The results are about to come in. Half an hour later than originally expected, but our election night program is set to begin. The numbers could be fast and furious. So, as Carrie said, buckle up, get ready. P.E.I. votes 2019 coming up in a matter of seconds right here on CBC. It has been a race unlike any other in our history. A P.E.I. election that is making national headlines for its potential outcome and for a tragic accident. This province could see a three-way race for the very first time. But in recent days, a heartbreaking turn of events. Green Party candidate Josh Underhay and his young son killed in a canoeing accident. All parties suspended campaigning and paid their respects. Now, on Election Day, the focus shifts back to the vote itself. Will the Liberals hold on to power and a fourth consecutive term?
The record of our economy from tip to tip throughout our province is strong.
Can the PCs and their new leader make a fresh start?
At the end of the day, this is about Prince Edward Island, about being the best island that we could be.
Do the Greens have enough support to form a government?
There's a huge disconnect currently between the health of our economy and the health of Islanders.
And is there room for the NDP?
We will transform our province and our country.
After 4 weeks and many emotions, the ballots have been cast. The counting has begun. The results, the analysis, the reaction. All live tonight on CBC. This is election night on Prince Edward Island. We are live from Charlottetown on a night that is unusual for a number of reasons. First among them, results delayed by half an hour. We were supposed to have them half an hour ago, but because of a threat at one of the polling stations, they are about to come in now. So we are expecting those results very soon. I have two guests helping me with our election coverage on our main set tonight. A familiar face to Compass viewers from our political panel, that's Paul McNeil. He'll be helping us guide tonight's our coverage, and also CBC P.E.I. legislative reporter Carrie Campbell. Now, before we talk to Paul and Carrie, let me explain what you're seeing on your screen tonight and how we're going to get this information to you. We call it the mini board. You will see it there, the number of leading or elected candidates in each district on P.E.I. You will also see the number of districts needed for a majority here. That is 14. So 26 districts results will come up on the screen below. You will see the results from the district cycle through. So if we haven't talked about your area, you'll see it appear on that mini board once every 2 minutes. And boy, oh boy, we said fast and furious, and yes, indeed, we are starting to get some numbers coming in tonight. We're going to look at the initial results that are already coming in. O'Leary, Inverness, and a lead of 29 votes for Robert Henderson tonight. These are early results. As we said, they were delayed by half an hour. Paul, we're already seeing things starting up.
This is Dr. Herb Dickinson trying to make a comeback in the provincial legislature. He was elected in 1996, lost in 2000, earned the same number of votes in both elections, and he is the second riding that the NDP have really targeted.
What about you, Carrie? What your early thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, that is a good opening for Dr. Herb Dickinson. 23 years after he became the first NDP elected, trying to become the second NDP elected in Island history. This is going to be, looks like one to watch already.
So this would be a Liberal stronghold. This is the incumbent Robert Henderson.
If you're the Liberals, you're worried about just a 29-vote lead after what is apparently the advance poll.
Okay, and so once again, just if you're just joining us, the polling results are starting to come in. 26 districts will have those results. That mini board across the lower part of your screen, those will be leading and elected. So far, we're just getting one, and that is a leading in that one district, O'Leary Inverness, Rob Henderson, the incumbent in that area. So we're going to check in with our CBC election night panel as well. It's in our lobby with CBC Radio's Matt Rainey. So we have a few guests out there as well. So we're going to check in with Matt and some really early results here, Matt.
Thanks so much, Louise. Here with Kathy Large and Rick McLean, just reacting. What are your thoughts, Kathy, on what you're seeing there?
Well, West Prince is an area that we have to watch, and it looks like the Liberals got their vote out, but just Herb Dickinson is in second place there, and there's only a couple of dozen votes between the two of them. So that's one that we'll be on very closely. It's probably a lot of the vote in the district, actually, because there are only, I think I said 3,200 votes in the whole district, and they've already got over 1,000 in. So,
well, my immediate response was, wow. Like, wow, you look at this and you go, those are big numbers to come out right away, and big numbers for Herb Dickinson, which means it puts him right into the mix for this. Yeah. I would think right now, if you're the NDP just down the street here a little ways, you're going, this was a very good night. And you're absolutely right. The Liberals, looks like, the machine got its vote out, and it's a good job.
Well, and you were saying earlier, Rick, that the importance of Western P.E.I., Western Prince for the Liberals.
Yep. Well, it's the big red wall out that way, right? You have to hold on to what you have in an election like this, and all of a sudden they're under threat in a riding that rightfully I think they would hope to be able to hold on to. So if this is a precursor for what we're going to see for the rest of the night, for the Liberals, that would be a concern. Now we can't wait to see what's going to happen on the other end of the province with the Conservatives.
Well, the other thing about the big red wall is it's not necessarily a big red wall forever. And this riding voted for the NDP once before. Yep. You go to Tignish Palmer Road, that was Gail Shea territory. And so it's all up in the air now, and we'll find out the real story.
It's early going. It's one district, but we're going to go back to the studio in Louise.
So maybe not as fast and furious as we thought, but at least we have something to talk about in these early moments of this election that has been full of so much excitement. And let's talk about the fact that right now, I mean, these are very early moments, but the Liberal in the lead in that one district, but the NDP behind Herb Dickinson.
Yeah, I mean, what these results show is that we have four parties all racing towards history. It's the Liberals trying to win a fourth government. It's the Tories trying to sort of recalibrate after 12 largely dysfunctional years in opposition. It's the Greens trying to have a historic breakthrough. And it's the NDP fighting for relevance as sort of the progressive voice on the left-hand wing of the island electorate. And, you know, if you're the NDP tonight and you look at Herb Dickinson's first numbers, those are very positive numbers.
Very positive, yeah.
And a couple things to note as we, eventually get some more results in here. Advanced turnout was, 36% overall. There's some districts where advanced turnout was up to 44%. There's a number of districts where it got that high. Right. So the advanced poll is going to tell us a whole lot about, where that district is going. Another thing I think we might see, we're all just talking about this one poll that we got here.
A lot of attention in O'Leary Inverness.
Robbie Henderson is enjoying the attention.
I'm sure he is. Herb Dickinson probably as well. I think 2015, actually, I thought at the time was a kind of a watershed moment for PEI politics. We saw the Greens and the NDP both hit 11% of the popular vote. That might not sound like a lot in the rest of Canada, but for the so-called third parties here on PEI, that was a big moment. Peter Bevan Baker winning his seat and then another seat.
We have the first screen, and there you go. Peter Bevan Baker with a lead, a strong lead right now with 339 votes. So this would not be surprising. New Haven, Rocky Point. This is his district. He is the Green Party leader, and at this point has a comfortable lead in this district.
Well, given the Green Party's position in the polls, if Peter Bevan Baker fell,
and these are advanced polls,
that would be a huge thing. I mean, if Peter Bevan Baker wins re-election and nothing else changes, we've created history because we've never had a third-party candidate win re-election in PEI. So there you go.
He's well on his way to re-election, and just for our viewers at home, the CBC Decision Desk will be taking all this information throughout the night, and what we will be bringing to you is projections as those come out. So they will be projecting elected candidates. They'll be projecting at some point, hopefully a winner or a loser here, some sort of projection through the night. But all this information comes, of course, when they're looking at the different numbers, and one of those numbers is the popular vote. And some of these races, you know, we were calling to be maybe too close to call at some point. Some of them will be quite tight. We saw a coin toss in the last election. Carrie, tell me about that coin toss, because people at home might be interested to hear about that.
There's another. PEI makes national news sometimes with some stories that seem a little bit goofy to us sometimes, but the coin toss was probably one of them. It is in Ireland's, the PEI's Election Act, and it's still there. So you settle a tie on PEI. It seems unlikely, but it happened in 2015.
In a district.
In a district. You settle a tie vote with a coin toss. That is a rather dated holdover from times gone by, and it was a chief electoral officer and I think the follow-up chief electoral officer both said, PEI legislature, please change that in your legislation, have a by-election instead. It never happened. So goodness, I hope we don't have a tie tonight, because we're going to be flipping another coin.
Island elections have been known to flip on between 500 and 1,000 votes in total. That's with two parties. If you throw in a third party, you're going to narrow that number considerably. So we could very well be into a lot of districts tonight that are very close in terms of final votes.
And that coin toss, by the way, was in District 5, and that was and then, in the last election.
Yep, and Alan McIsaac won that coin toss. He stepped down, but Mary Ellen McGuinness is in this race here. And the chief electoral officer told me he still has that special coin.
Is that right?
Yeah, so it's passed down from his predecessor.
So if you're watching this now, I know Peter Bevan Baker will be heading to headquarters, Green headquarters in Charlottetown, but if you're Peter Bevan Baker right now looking at what is happening, there's the headquarters. It's like they're listening to me. This is the headquarters. This is the P.E.I. Brewing Company in Charlottetown tonight. So Peter Bevan Baker not there yet. He's going to be watching some of the results here from his home, and then he'll make his way there. And our reporter Steve Bruce will be there later tonight. But if you're Peter Bevan Baker and you're looking at these numbers so far, what's going through your mind?
Well, it's hard to gauge, because his own riding, he should be ahead. The Green number in West Prince and in Inverness is pretty small. The vote seems to be going for the NDP, and I think that'll be one of the tales of the tape tonight is what are the Green votes in the advance polls, because the Liberals and the Tories both want you to walk into a poll and vote for their local candidate. In many cases or many districts across the province, the Green Party is hoping to ride on the coattails of Peter Bevan Baker, who is by a long shot the most popular leader on Prince Edward Island.
Yeah, if you've been keeping track of the polls, even personal leadership, you know, between Wade McLaughlin, which had been dwindling his sort of personal numbers within those polling numbers, and then Peter Bevan Baker coming out ahead of that. So a lot of people wondering, can he carry the party island-wide?
Yeah, and what the story I started to explain, then we got Peter Bevan Baker's result there, but the 2015 election, we saw both the NDP and the Greens break through that 10% of the popular vote, kind of a ceiling for them. Again, it doesn't sound like much, but the Greens elected their leader, then they won a by-election. I always felt that showed Islanders, you know what, you can vote for another party and they can get elected. Now, here we go. Some more results. We have PCs leading in 2 districts now. So, but that you could vote for one of the non-2 traditional parties with a chance of getting someone elected.
Yeah, we're getting that ready for you, Carrie. So districts 3 and 26. So Montague-Kilmuir for PC and 26 Alberton-Bloomfield. So there we go. Montague-Kilmuir, and we're seeing Corey Deagle, the PC candidate there, leading so far by 17 votes.
And leading the Green, which you know, this is what happens when votes split. John Allen McLean is a strong Green candidate in District 3. Actor works at Copper Bottom Brewing.
And we are no longer, by the way, in advanced vote polling numbers. Yeah.
Right, and the other I don't know if you're going to put it up. The other riding that they're leading
26, yeah,
is in West Prince. You know, this is the heart of the Liberal wall. Alberton, Bloomfield. Pat Murphy is the incumbent. He is in cabinet. He's the Minister of Rural Affairs. Ernie Hudson is a former executive director of the PC, chief of staff, I'm sorry, for the PC party, and also worked for Gail Shea. But that is a very tight race.
It is a tight race. So, but what happens here? What does this mean to Pat Murphy if he doesn't get? I mean, we're only in the lead here by 14 votes. Carrie, you want to weigh in on that one?
Well, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in Western PEI, not just because, you know, we're referring it to as the red wall, this Liberal stronghold for PEI, but also because in the last cabinet, there's how many seats from Summerside West, everyone but one of them contained a Liberal cabinet minister in the last government. I think, you know, we heard some comments from some voters up west that they felt that really benefited them in terms of when they were fighting to keep their schools open. but they were kind of trying to test the winds, I think, to see just which way this election was going to go. They like having people on, in cabinet on the government side. They want to stay there. Where did they think that this was going to go, and did they put their votes there?
Historically, the candidate who wins the advance poll, 90% of the time, they win the race.
We have another PC winning in, so far leading in District 4, Belfast, Murray River. This is the incumbent with a comfortable lead there of 348 votes. Darlene Compton is the PC incumbent.
Darlene Compton is a very competent and well-liked Tory MLA. She ran for the leadership that saw James Aylward win, and clearly that's a very big lead. So I would probably, the Tories are very happy right now.
We're going to have a look at District 27, Tignish Palmer Road, and how the results are coming in there. Hal Perry is the incumbent there. He's in a lead with 241 votes over the PC candidate. So a race there between PC and Liberal. Kerry.
And Hal Perry has won for the PCs. He's won for the Liberals, trying to repeat here for the Liberals. Every New Year's Eve, Hal does his own Operation Red Nose, gives people drives home on New Year's Eve. So very well liked in his district. I joked with Hal that maybe this time he should try running for the Greens. He didn't think that was going to work up in his end of the province.
District 22, Summerside South Drive. Green Party candidate leading in this district by 42 votes. This is the incumbent Liberal Tina Mundy.
Social Services Minister has delivered a lot of expanded programs, many of which would benefit people in her constituency in the west end of Summerside. Steve Howard is an entrepreneur, works in the solar power environment. But the Greens, they thought if they were going to make inroads, Summerside and area would be fertile ground. The advance poll for Steve Howard says it very well could be.
All right, we're going to go to PC headquarters now, Harmony House, Hunter River. My colleague Brittany Spencer is there tonight. That is where Dennis King, the PC leader, is watching the results come in. And I believe, Brittany, you have a guest with you tonight from Harmony House in Hunter River. Oh. I'm not sure if Brittany can hear me there.
Sorry about that, Louise.
Okay, that's all right.
Sorry about that, Louise. Had a little trouble hearing you there. I'm with Margaret Ann Walsh. She's a campaign manager for Dennis King's district, District 15. So as you're seeing these initial results start to roll in, what are your thoughts and feelings?
We're feeling pretty good. Like the results so far. We're feeling very proud of the campaign that we've run. From the start of our leadership convention in February, Dennis won a decisive victory. The other three contestants got behind him, and everyone rallied from there. We went tip to tip to the island and had solutions workshops. We took ideas from the people and we brought them back, and we formed our platform based on those ideas. So we followed Dennis's lead of it doesn't matter where a good idea comes from, it's to be given value, and we feel that resonated across the island. So we're feeling good about the evening so far.
Great. And now, Dennis won the leadership in February, and he's been building his campaign since. What has it been like watching him transition into this leadership role?
Well, it's been amazing. He has really had an ability to connect with people. Our party got behind him right away, and then everywhere he went, the momentum just grew, and we just really followed his lead, and the team kept getting built bigger and stronger, and it was just very positive. The tone was also set by Dennis, which was to take a positive approach to the campaign and go from there, and it connected with people.
And now still waiting on results here in District 15. Any idea what could happen here today?
Well, we are hoping that he's going to win District 15, and we're hoping that it's going to be one of many wins across the island for us tonight. So we are very optimistic about the evening.
Well, thanks so much, Margaret, and back to you, Louise.
All right, thank you very much, Brittany. And no results yet from any Charlottetown districts that we can show you, but we're going to show you vote share. So this will be trying to gauge the popular vote and where that stands. So that threshold at 40.8% is that threshold that would point to a majority government. So at this point, it's looking minority, but far too early to say here tonight. But the PC is leading that vote share, pardon me, with 36.4%. Is this a surprise?
Well, it is, but you have to look at it in context of what ridings have reported, and we don't have a whole lot of we have nothing out of Charlottetown. The Tories will benefit when they get more from the east. The Liberals may benefit if they get more to the west.
What story is this telling for you so far anyway, Carrie? I know it's early on and we don't, like I said, no results from any of the Charlottetown districts.
Yeah, like Paul said, this is almost like sort of a random sample of particular island districts, so it's hard to read too much from this. I mean, if you took this at its face value, this is, well, it's not an inversion of the poll, but, you know, the polls that we have seen had the Greens in front, I think more recently followed by the PCs with the Liberals trailing behind. You know, we'll see as we get more districts in how this might change.
I mean, a lot of growth and room to grow there for the Liberals and the Greens as Charlottetown results start to roll in. Steve Bruce tonight is at Green Party headquarters, and he has a guest with him tonight. Hey, Steve.
Hey there, Louise. Yeah, you heard two big cheers here in the last few minutes. First, as those early results came in for Peter Bevan Baker, and then for the Green Party's Steve Howard as well. Cynthia King here with me now. She's the campaign co-chair for the Greens. Your sense of these early results, how do you react?
Well, early results are just that. They're early results. It's encouraging to see those numbers climbing in some districts, and of course we are extremely happy about seeing Peter Bevan Baker's numbers so good, and we see Summerside taking hold as well. The room is just filled with a buzz, and people are really excited about these early results.
You've seen all the attention that the Green Party on P.E.I. has gotten over the last few weeks with the polls that have come out. So much attention from the national media. Has that put a pressure on the party to do well tonight, to form government?
You know, yes, we did get a lot of different communications with people from all over the place, including Canada, the United States, and other countries in the world. When we were asked if we felt that pressure, our answer was always, well, not until now. But we certainly didn't you know, deliver the campaign with that weight on our shoulders. We were very focused on the province and doing our best for each district here on PEI.
So what are the expectations for the party tonight? What would make you happy?
You know, that's a tough call, because I think when you've got 2 seats and you're looking to get more, the expectations are very broad. There's been lots of polls and lots of chatter about what the expectations might be. We're looking for definitely a few more seats, and it's not something that you can call right now.
All right, Louise, that's Cynthia King, the campaign co-manager for the Green Party.
All right, thanks very much, Steve. You can see there PC 4, Liberal 3, Green 2. We're going to go through some of the specific results now, district by district, as we're getting them in. So Rustico Emerald, starting there, District 18. Brad Trivers, he is the incumbent here, with a lead of 439 votes, so a strong showing there.
Brad Trivers is a very good constituency man, came second in the leadership to James Aylward, works very hard.
We're going to go to District 4, Belfast, Murray River. That is PC Darlene Compton. She's the incumbent there with a lead of 348. Moving on now, we'll check to District 27, Tignish Palmer Road. Hal Perry is the incumbent there with a lead of 241. That is a strong liberal sort of that wall that we talk about. That is in there. Carrie?
Yeah, it's actually interesting. I know there was a lot of talk when Hal switched from winning that district as a PC to running for the Liberals. You know, was he going to be accepted as a Liberal candidate? Could he repeat that win? Well, he actually, in that last election as a Liberal, he increased his margin. As a PC, he won by 33 votes. As a Liberal, he won by 668. So the switch of colors didn't hurt him any.
Montague-Kilmuir, Alan Roach was a Liberal. He was not seeking re-election here. So this was anyone's district really to win or lose. And we're talking about a PC lead right now of 17 votes. Paul, I know you want to weigh in on Montague-Kilmuir.
Well, it's one poll, and that's only one of 9, but it is a 3-way race in Montague-Kilmuir.
Yeah, you're definitely seeing the Green right up behind. District 26, Alberton Bloomfield, Pat Murphy is the incumbent there. And this is really a tight race between the Liberals and the PC. Ernie Hudson in the lead right now, but just with 14 votes. And I think we're going to see quite a few of these throughout the night where it's going to maybe flip back and forwards with that narrow lead. We still don't have results coming in yet from Charlottetown, so we're obviously waiting for those to see how much of a inroads that the Liberals and the Greens can maybe make in those districts. District 8, we're going to look at Stanhope Marshall. This is the Liberal leader's district, Wade McLaughlin. He's in the lead right now by 11 votes, so a narrow lead at this point in the game.
The Tories put a full-out offensive to try to beat Wade McLaughlin, even running advertisements
Right.
on Compass, which is almost unheard of. So the Premier must be reasonably pleased with the advanced poll that he's received. Blois Thompson is clearly a very strong candidate.
But this could be a little fight here tonight.
Oh, this is definitely going to be a fight. I think anytime you see the advanced poll come out this closely, you know, there's a huge chunk of the votes right there, but all the Liberals have for that is this 11-vote lead. So we're going to keep watching this one as every poll reports in, I think.
District 24, Evangeline Miscush. You're seeing the incumbent there, Sonny Gallant, leading with 133 votes at this point.
Green have high expectation for Nick Arsenault, Executive Director of the Evangeline School Board. Sonny Gallant is a vote machine. He was the largest vote getter, had the largest plurality on the island in 2015.
District 10, Charlottetown Winslow, Robert Mitchell's district. He is behind right now, but again, very narrow win or lead right now for Amanda Morrison of the Green Party.
One poll, obviously not the advance. Robert Mitchell is considered as safe a seat as you have for the Liberals. So if this is any indication of his night, it will not be good.
This is the first district reporting from Charlottetown tonight, so that is a narrow lead there for the Green Party candidate in District 10. We're going to head out to our panel in the lobby now, Matt Rainey, and what are your panelists saying about what they're seeing so far?
Plain, watching as you are all of these numbers come in, the numbers going up, what does it all say to you, Kathy?
Well, I'm looking at the total vote because I want to get the overall picture, and it's not telling us the story we were expecting to see tonight, not yet anyway. The Greens are behind both the Liberals and the PCs in terms of total vote, and you know, the percentages are quite, you know, it's quite wide. 34% for the Liberals, 36% for the PCs, and only 25% for the Green. So it's early going, but we may not have the whole story that we were thinking was going to happen tonight.
What do you think, Rick?
Well, I've sort of been staring at the board because it keeps changing. It's quite hypnotic.
5 now for the Liberals,
And one of the ones I thought was interesting is the one that just went by, which is Tina Mundays, because you're talking about a cabinet minister here who is under serious threat. Because if you're the Liberals, ideally, those would be the people who can sort of bring it home for you. So when you look and you see that Tina Munday might be in trouble, and the other thing is that we're seeing some very large first reports here, and the large numbers would usually mean those are the advanced polls. When you see numbers that big, that means that the machinery really did its job for the Liberals and the Conservatives, but we've generally felt that the Greens don't have a machine, so when you see big numbers for them.
Exactly. I've heard other people suggest, too, the Liberal Party is the party that has the ground game, that has the mechanisms to get their voters out and to follow up and make sure that people get there. So it may just be that that's what we're seeing. The Liberal Party, with its good mechanics, has managed to get everybody out to the advanced poll.
All right, we're going to go back to Louise in the studio.
All right, we have about 12,000 votes in the system at this point from across the island. We're going to look at vote change. So this is a comparison for the parties in terms of vote share or popular vote compared to the last election. So the PCs are holding pretty firm with their vote change, the share of the vote. The Liberals are down; they're losing some steam as far as their change in vote share. The Green, less than we had thought we would see at this point, but none of them nearing that 40.8% popular vote for a majority.
Well, again, if you're the Green, you don't panic yet. I mean, you're up 13.3%, and we haven't had a whole lot of numbers out of Charlottetown or the Summerside area. So when we see those start trickling in, we'll have a better idea.
Yeah, and when you talk about, when we see those big numbers when there's just one poll reporting, we've got the advanced poll. I'll always remember the District 11 by-election, which the Greens won, ended up being their second seat in the House. We were at Liberal headquarters. The advanced poll number came up. The PCs had won the advanced poll. The Liberal was in second place, and the Green candidate, Hannah Bell, came in third. Hannah Bell won every other poll in that race except one. So as Rick was suggesting, sometimes the advanced poll shows you kind of the machinery that got out the advanced vote. Now the machinery also gets out the vote on election day, but you know, it might give more of an edge on those advanced polling days to get people out. So you may look to see, you know, the parties like the Greens that don't have the same ground game maybe try to make up some of the distance on the election day polls.
I'm trying to keep an eye on the numbers. There are some tight races this evening, and one of them is in District 8. That is Liberal leader Wade McLaughlin's district, and that is where Brian Higgins is tonight with a guest. Hey, Brian.
Hi, Louise. Yes, I'm joined by Katie Morello. Now, Katie is one of the co-chairs of the provincial Liberal campaign. She's in the building tonight, where the Liberals have gathered to watch. You told me you're pacing the floor. What's going on?
Well, I mean, it is a tight race tonight, and we're optimistic and confident, but I think it'll be a race to the finish.
Right. This first poll we've seen so far is showing an 11 vote lead. We were talking earlier about how much time is spent in the district, how much time is spent in the province. How did you strategize that?
Well, I think with the Premier, I mean, what really energizes him is being in his district and speaking with Islanders and with his neighbors and whatnot. So for him, he did spend a lot of time in his district. He was able to cover the entire district early last week, which is quite good, and has spent the time since doing follow-up calls and whatnot. So, he's a really hard worker. He spent a lot of time both in the district and all over P.E.I.
Right.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. We'll be watching the progress through the evening. Back to you, Louise. This is Katie Morello, one of the co-chairs of the Liberal campaign.
All right, thank you very much, Brian. Just looking at the numbers at the bottom of your screen there, 5-5-3 at this point. It is too early to project what's going to happen in the referendum, but we can show you where things are at right now. The CBC Decision Desk looking at some of these early results. So far, not meeting either of the thresholds for the yes side to win. We're looking at 42.5, and just in 3 of the districts so far. Carrie, is that a surprise to you? I mean, I know it's still early in the evening.
Yeah, well, I mean, it partly depends. I'm trying to figure out, which of these districts are reporting. Are we, again, kind of facing a lag in Charlottetown where we expect to see more support? But if we've got 14 out of 27 districts reporting in some capacity, and only 3 of those are supporting the change, then that doesn't leave a lot of leeway there. Basically, the no side has to win 11 districts, and then this stops. So right now, the no side is leading in 11 of those districts.
This would be disappointing, particularly for the Green Party, who was in strong favor of MMP in this referendum. So let's have a look at 3 Green districts, and we're going to start with District 22, Summerside South Drive, where Steve Howard has a lead now of 42 votes over the Liberal incumbent Tina Mundy.
It just shows the strength of the Green vote in the Summerside area. Tina Mundy is a strong local politician.
Let's move on to another district now, New Haven, Rocky Point. And this is Peter Bevan Baker, the Green Party leader. Comfortable lead there with 339 votes, followed by the PC candidate there. Any thoughts there, Carrie?
Well, I remember I always would hear these rumblings. Peter Bevan Baker is not well liked in his district. Peter Bevan Baker is in trouble in his district. They were always coming, though, from someone who had some particular partisan interest in that race. This is a good opening in the advance poll. It's interesting. I think we saw the leaders campaigning more in their districts in this election than any previous P.E.I. election that I've heard of. Peter Bevan Baker, I think, was the first one to start branching out to try to support some of his candidates. But all the leaders had to work, I think, a little harder in their home districts just to try to make sure they could pull off that win.
Well, Hannah Bell, we spoke about her earlier tonight. She's the incumbent in District 11, Charlottetown Belvedere, winning the by-election there. A lead right now of 41 votes. So this is turning out to be a bit of a race between the Greens and the PC.
Look, it's a major three-way race. We have almost 1,900 plus votes put in already. The Liberal candidate is not a weak candidate by any. She helped author the provincial poverty strategy.
For our viewers at home, this is Green Party headquarters right now. But go ahead, Paul.
A strong Tory in Carrier, strong Liberal, and an incumbent Green in District 11, and that's the type of dynamic three-way race that we're going to see probably on more than one occasion tonight.
Let's have a look at PCs who are leading in their districts at this point. So we're at 6, 5, and 4 at the moment. Rustico Emerald, Brad Trivers, that's the incumbent there, a comfortable lead of 439 votes. Belfast Murray River, Darlene Compton with a comfortable lead there as well, 505. She's the incumbent in Belfast Murray River. Montague Kilmuir with a lead of 429 votes tonight for Corey Deagle. This was really up for anybody because the Alan Roach did not seek re-election in Montague Kilmuir, so followed by the Liberal candidate in second there. And District 26, Alberton Bloomfield, and this was This is Pat Murphy's district. He's the incumbent there, and this is a race, a very tight race between the Liberal incumbent and Ernie Hudson, the PC candidate there, with just a very narrow lead of 5 votes, Paul.
3 polls out of 10, 5. I mean, that is as close as it gets.
Yeah, this could be one of those close to call districts, as we're going to see maybe quite a few of those tonight, Carrie, with...
I keep thinking coin toss.
No, don't go there. But, you know, I think that was the name of the game as we headed into this election, was how many of these districts would be too close to call. And I think that's what you're seeing in some of these. So we're going to move on now to another district, Kensington-Malpeque. Matthew McKay, he's leading in that district. He's the incumbent there, 81 votes.
Followed by Matthew McKay.
Followed by Matthew McKay. Yes, this became a national story as well. Matthew McKay and Matthew J. McKay for the Green Party there. District 2, Georgetown-Pownal. PC Stephen Myers is the incumbent in Georgetown-Pownal. He's in a lead right now with 247 votes. That's it's a pretty good lead right now for Stephen Myers. Early still in the game, but he's the incumbent there. He was expected to win this district.
He certainly was expected to win, but that is an incredibly strong showing for the Greens in what is largely a rural Prince Edward riding that stretches from Georgetown almost to Stratford. Just 1 poll of 10, but this is you see the Greens sort of usurping the Liberals as the party of opposition, at least in this riding.
And further to that, I'm looking down the list on my screen here. I see the Greens in 2nd place in 7 districts, which seems to be a story that may be developing here tonight.
Yeah, so we'll look at District 21, Summerside-Wilmot. This was Liberal Chris Palmer is the incumbent there, and Lynn Lund leading with 18.
Chris Palmer is the incumbent cabinet minister there, who said last week or earlier this week on Compass that he didn't think it was a competitor for close race. He may rue the day that he said that. But again, Lynn Lund is a very strong Green candidate. They had high expectations that the vice leader of the party could and can win election.
All right, we have some breaking news quickly for you tonight, because we are CBC Decision Desk. It's our first elect of the night, projected election of Brad Trivers. 522 vote ahead of the next candidate, which is the Green candidate there. And so we are seeing some cheering. As you can see, that is PC headquarters, Harmony House in Hunter River, for the first projected elect of the night, and that is Brad Trivers. Happy people there in Dennis King's headquarters.
Well, they may be happier in a little while, too.
They may be even, we might see more cheering in 15.
Yeah, Brad Trivers has been an effective MLA in his first term in opposition, well-liked. He's kind of what I would think of as, there's almost, you hear about red Tories, there's almost a little bit of a green Tory caucus in the PEI legislature. Brad Trivers, a key member of that. I think we've done a story on Compass about all the solar panels that he has on his home, so not a surprise to see him put a lock on his seat for the PCs early on this evening.
Okay, we're going to take a look now, once again, at vote share tonight. We've got about 20,000 votes in the system, still not where we could be for a majority at 40.8, but certainly the PC's coming out strong in vote share.
You know, what we're starting to see is that the PC vote is stronger than in any poll that was published. That the Liberal vote is down, but it hasn't dropped down to the basement, and that the Green vote has not reached the expectation. Now, if you're going to analyze just 20,000 votes, you would say that maybe a lot of people had the ballot box hesitancy, that maybe they said they wanted to vote Green provincially, but when it came to the local district, they voted for someone else. And that's what the entire Tory campaign was built on. It wasn't so much about policy, it was about being the soft, safe landing place in case you were a little worried.
And do you think Carrie, do you think that's what's happening right now, at least?
Well, I think the Tories had one advantage, even as they were trailing in the polls, in that they did have 8 strong incumbents in the race to the Greens 2. And that's the number we see on there. And there's a result there. Dennis King ahead in his district with a close result there. But they had an edge in terms of just the recognition with those incumbent candidates. The Green list, besides the 2 incumbents, very few of those candidates have even run before. That's the other advantage the Tories had. They have more candidates who have never won before but have run in prior elections. So an advantage there that's maybe helping them with votes here.
We're going to take a look at some other districts districts now, just to get a better sense of how things are playing out. Perhaps in some districts we haven't had a closer look at. We have seen Kensington Malpeque, Matthew McKay in a lead now with 81 votes. Matthew J. McKay, not to be confused with Matthew McKay, the Green candidate, in second there, and that's with a lead of 81 votes. District 19, Borden-Concora, this is Jamie Fox. He's the incumbent there. He has a lead of 108.
Yes, I mean, if you're Jamie Fox, you're very happy with these results. We talked about the write-in earlier. The Green vote isn't nearly as strong as perhaps anticipated. It appears to be a two-candidate race in that district.
Right. Okay, let's move on to one to watch, of course, District 15, Brackley-Hunter River. We just were there with our live camera, but this is Dennis King's district, and he is in the lead right now, 158 behind Windsor White, who lots of people thought might do very well in this district because he's very well known, a high school principal. Lots of people knew him.
Dennis King was running a social media ad that emphasized in his speech, his nomination speech, that he was committed to the residents of District 15. You don't create that ad unless there is some question about whether you are. Clearly, Dennis King, at least in the advance poll, was very effective on the doorstep because that's not an insignificant lead.
Yeah, and I think Dennis King, we saw him spend an awful lot of time campaigning in that district. I actually think he might get a little benefit here because of the fact that his predecessor, Rob Lance, came up just short, winning his district in the 2015 election. Honestly, I think if you had run that campaign over in with that District 13 for Rob Lance, I think he probably would have won that because I think, enough people would have said, I didn't realize the PC leader was going to lose. I would have given him my vote. Dennis King might have benefited a little from that as well.
All right, we're going to go to Dennis King's headquarters, to the PC headquarters tonight. Brittany Spencer standing by with a campaign worker. There must be some cheers that we saw a little bit earlier, Brittany, going on there.
Oh, absolutely. Plenty of cheers in the room, especially after those last numbers came through on the screen. I'm here with Sean McIsaac. He's chair of the PC campaign. Sean, tell me, as you saw those last numbers roll on the screen, what are your feelings right now?
Pretty darn exciting. Looking good.
It is looking good. So, the energy in this room is building and building as these numbers keep rolling in, I guess. But can you tell me a little bit about the campaign strategy over the last several weeks? Were there any specific districts that you were really focusing on with this campaign?
Yeah, there was a number of districts, 8, 11, 12, 14, 21, 26. Yeah.
And what has the strategy been for the PCs this time around?
Strategy has been totally positive. Dennis set the tone with a positive campaign about the people, and we stuck to the plan. I got involved because I believe in Dennis and believed in that approach.
And you say you believe in Dennis. What qualities does Dennis have that you believe would make him an excellent premier for our province?
Dennis is a very bright individual. He's got an interesting perspective. He sincerely believes in listening and working together. As long as I've known him, he's been a great and fun guy to be around and very perceptive on what we should do to make this a better place to live.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me, Sean. We're going to stay here and keep watching the results roll in and check back with you in a bit, Louise.
Thanks very much, Brittany. We're going to take a look at vote share now, and you'll see for the first time tonight that the PCs have crossed past that majority threshold, 41.2%. There is still a lot of polls to count here. There's still a lot of votes to come in. Narrow path to 14, but it's not impossible at this time. You need that 14 for majority government here on PEI. We're going to show you as well. We can tell you the the decision desk has projected an elect for Matthew McKay in Kensington Malpeque. So a comfortable win there for Matthew McKay in Kensington Malpeque. So on this note, we're going to head out to the lobby now where Matt Rainey's standing by with his guests and to get their thoughts on what we're seeing so far.
Well, I know, Louise, a lot of people are cheering for a blue team in a certain hockey game later on tonight, but what do you think of these numbers for the blue team so far?
Well, they have to be thrilled at the moment, and the biggest number of the group is the the share of the vote. Once you hit that magic number, whatever it is, 40.8%, say 41%, and they're there. The flip side of that coin, of course, is that the Green vote isn't where we were expecting it based on the polls.
Not yet, but you have to remember this is the first past the post system. We don't have all the ridings in, so geographically the distribution of the votes may not tell the whole story. But it's pretty amazing for a leader who came in 2 months ago.
Who was sitting at this table, I think, 4 years ago, the last election.
To be producing results like this. And I will eat crow because on the radio panel that I took part in, I was very leery that he would be able to do much of anything in that short a period of time. But they recruited great candidates, and some of those candidates are doing quite well here tonight. So
yeah, we've seen Brad Trivers and Matthew McKay elected. I believe Corey Deagle has just been announced as being elected in Montague. So what is all this saying to you, Rick?
Well, geographically, what they're doing is they're taking care of business. On the eastern end of P.E.I., which you traditionally think of as largely blue, they've just added the Montague riding. I mean, so that's very good news. If you want to start, you want to win at home, to take the Toronto Maple Leafs analogy one step further, I guess. And then on the other side of the province, they're showing some real fight inside the red wall, which means they could pick up something there. So they're taking care of business at home and starting to make things difficult for the other side elsewhere.
And as we're seeing all these districts come in, any other big stories for you tonight, Kathy?
A number of things are happening, but I think it's really just too early to be really sure. The Greens are leading in Charlottetown Belvedere, which I think is an interesting riding just because it's so tight. And if they can maintain that, you never know what's going to happen in the rest of the Charlottetown ridings because we haven't heard from many of them.
All right, we're going to go back to Louise in the studio.
Okay, and we do have to, we'll begin with some breaking news for you in this CBC Decision Desk projecting Peter Bevan-Baker being re-elected in New Haven, Rocky Point. Not really a surprise here, Carrie and Paul, but I'm sure breathing a sigh of relief that at least this part we can project that he's being re-elected there.
Well, it's hard to create history
There's
if you're not in the
headquarters.
provincial legislature.
Oh, you can see the cheering there. Sorry, I didn't interrupt you there, but yes, I mean, he's back.
He is back, and there's no real surprise, but you need your leader in the House.
Carrie?
In the lead up to the 2015 election, when it looked like he might be elected, there were lots of people who said it couldn't happen. I don't want to point fingers. I think Paul McNeil might have been one of them.
I probably was.
Yeah.
But I'm rarely right on any of this.
But he ended up with one of the biggest, if not the biggest, margins of victory on election night in 2015. So, no surprise that with his party doing as well as it has been in the polls, there he is elected at this point.
Still a lot of districts that are too close to call. So we're going to look at 6 of the closest races happening now on Prince Edward Island. So you can look at these. I mean, look at that, the Charlottetown Victoria Park. That is an extremely close race between the Liberals and Green there. That could flip really at any second here. There is a tight race happening in Wade McLaughlin's district, the Liberal leader, Stanhope Marshfield. So he will be watching that very intently right now. Anything else that stands out here for you, Carrie? We're seeing the Greens in second in 2 of those closest races.
Well,
there.
Just that on this board, you see the Liberals are leading. The 5 of their 7 seats are 5 of the 6 closest races. So these are seats that could flip, in this case, to the Greens, the PCs, and 1 to the NDP. So that Liberal number is a precarious one at the bottom of the screen, that leading in 7.
But
that's a soft number right now.
You can also see why the Liberals put such a focus on Charlottetown area ridings throughout the election. If they can hold the Charlottetown area ridings they have, even if they were to lose the election, it should be a strong opposition. But if some of those switch, then the PCs could be talking majority government, and the Greens could be talking official opposition.
Okay, we have another PC elect from the Decision Desk that we can show you now, and that is in Montague-Kilmuir. Corey Deagle, the PC candidate there, elected in that district. Again, this was the former Liberal Alan Roach. This was his district.
Right. Corey Deagle's a young person who worked for the PC office, really good in the community, very active in the minor hockey and with youth sports even still, and just a solid win for Corey.
Okay, we're going to take a look at Stratford-Keppoch now, District 6. PC former leader of the Progressive Conservative Party on P.E.I., that is James Elward. He is in a lead with 199 votes. And David Dunphy, no big surprise here that this is shaking out this way at this point anyway.
No, the Liberals certainly had expectations or hopes that David Dunphy could pull this one off. James Aylward is very popular in his riding, and clearly that's shown with a 199 vote lead.
Yeah,
I believe.
James Elward won this district resoundingly the last two times. Last time against David Dunphy, when a lot of people thought this is going to be a close race. James Elward it wasn't close at all.
We're going to go to District 1, Surrey Elmira. That is Colin Levy's district. He's the incumbent there, and he's in a lead with 88 votes at the moment behind the Boyd Lear, the Green candidate there. He was expected to take this district back as well.
Well, it was expected to be a tough. In the last election, there was an NDP candidate sort of with Liberal ties that picked up 600 votes. Colin Levy won by 235 or so. Boyd Laird is a strong Green. He owns a marine service company up in Surrey area. He'd know all the fishermen and farmers. So with, 3 polls out of 10, it's not an insignificant lead, but it's not a runaway.
Well, we'd love to know right now what the PC leader Dennis King is thinking. So we got the next best thing, I suppose, if we could say, if we go to Brittany Spencer live at headquarters tonight, and that is Dennis King's son.
That's right, Louise. I'm here with Jacob Hemphill. Jacob, how are you feeling tonight? How does it feel to be here with your dad watching the results come in?
It's super exciting. It's a day I never thought would come. So the blood is rushing. We're all here. We're super excited, and it's a positive day for the family.
And as his son, you would know best. What qualities does your dad have that you think will make him a good leader for the party and potentially the province?
Well, he's a great father. He's a kind man, and he cares about people more than anybody I've ever met. And he's a role model, and he's been a role model for me my whole life. So I'm just so proud to be here right now.
Great. And yeah, how's the rest of the family feeling here tonight?
Well, how's the rest of the family feeling here tonight? They seem to be off their rocker right now. They're pretty excited. They're going hard. You can just tell it right here. Yeah, and this is the family. They're super supportive, and they've always been right from the start. And so it's great to be here today.
Well, thanks so much, Jacob. We'll go back to you, Louise.
Thanks, Brittany. We're still waiting for 6 districts to come. It's so tight. No projection yet. It is leaning towards a PC government, but no call on whether that would be a majority or minority. 2 of the 6 districts that we still haven't heard from are in Charlottetown. So this is, this is turning into a very interesting night, to say the least. The PCs obviously are going to be, as you just heard, watching this with, a lot of joy right now anyway.
Well, this is a great result thus far for the PC party under Dennis King. It's not a bad result by any stretch of the imagination for Peter Bevan Baker and the Greens. They're starting to make inroads into Charlottetown. They're first or second. They're leading District 12, which is the four-way fight. And it's going to be a long night before we get to final results in 26.
Yeah, what do you make of what's happening so far? The PCs have just made some big inroads tonight.
Yeah, no, the PCs are doing really well here. I think, with Dennis King having just come on as leader in February, this is a fantastic start. You hope you continue this and you've done your job. What I'm thinking, though, is just remarkable. The 10-7-6 split at the bottom of the screen, that would be something that would be new in island politics, that there would be seats distributed relatively, equally between 3 different parties like that. This is new for a third party to be up there with more than maybe 1 seat.
Yeah.
The Tory strategy was to win the east and then sort of the periphery of Charlottetown, and then try to build in some extra ridings in Prince County, and that seems to be working.
Yeah, and still close races here, but we do have some breaking news as the CBC Decision Desk can re-elect Hannah Bell in District 11. So with a lead of 244 votes. Ronnie Caraher, he's well known in that district, but just couldn't quite get to where Hannah Bell was. She was elected in the by-election. She gave the Green Party that 2nd seat, and now tonight re-elected.
Hannah Bell may be benefiting from sort of the benefit of incumbency tonight, but if you look at Ronnie Caraher, you look at Roxanne Carter-Thompson, both very strong candidates. This was a 3-way race.
And this district shifted. In the realignment.
Shifted considerably, and there was what would be considered a traditional Tory vote went into the district that actually Hannah Bell won 18 months ago or so. So this is a great personal win for Hannah Bell and the Green Party.
Yeah, and she really made a profile for herself once she got the opportunity to be in the legislature, to become a champion, speaking up, for poverty reduction efforts, trying to hold government to account over social assistance, things like that. So that's a big win for the Greens, because now it means the 2 seats that they have held. Now they'll just look to build from that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all unfolds at the end. As you say, the Greens are probably looking at the 6 at this point in the game and saying, this is a win for us regardless. If it just stopped now that they have that, despite what the polls had suggested, and I know that a lot of the national media attention was on that poll and whether we would see a Green government forming on Prince Edward Island, but for the PCs, they're feeling pretty comfortable at this point in the game.
Yes, you know, the PCs are being impacted by the Green sort of surge, for lack of a better word. You know, they've been in opposition for 12 years. They thought they should win a majority government the last time around. It's still early, but it certainly doesn't look like the possibility of a majority government is very strong right now. Could turn very easily. But the Greens, if you talk to them sort of before one of those polls came out that put them at 40%, I think if they were being honest, they would say if they won 6 or 7 seats, they could consider that a huge accomplishment.
Let's have a look at vote change. This will give us an indication of popular vote the last election compared to what is happening tonight. And so the PCs have dropped below that 40% mark, but still, you know, on the plus side compared to the last election, the Liberal vote share has gone down quite significantly. The Green up 16.7. So what do you take away from these numbers?
Well, what I take away is that the PC campaign, which was built less on policy and more on building an image of a leader as someone who could be the safe landing spot, is working. That a lot of Islanders may have supported the Green at some level, but when it came time to actually marking an X, the primary beneficiary here tonight is the PC party under Dennis King.
Yeah, it looks like PCs that might have drifted over to the Greens, because over the years we've heard lots of longtime PCs and Liberals say, you know what, I'm with the Greens now. Maybe the PCs won some of them back, those back under Dennis King, and the Greens have just picked up from the Liberals at this point.
All right, let's check in with our panel in the lobby to see what they think of what they're seeing, especially with this vote change, Matt.
We're looking at those vote change numbers too. Louise, Kathy, what does it say to you?
Well, I think the point that Paul just made about the fact that Dennis King's campaign is working probably is at the heart of what we're seeing. It was a very soft approach to the public. It's all about you people. We want you to come into our big tent. And
collegial.
It's going to be collegial. And how many times did you see him shake the other leaders' hands and so on? He came across as somebody who wanted to do politics differently. So maybe it was a safe landing place for people who wanted some change after all.
Well, it's interesting that he would want to do politics differently, in fact, to get them to do it the same way they always have, which is vote more along a more traditional line, because these numbers were suggesting that they're in the 39% range. That's just underneath what theoretically you would need traditionally to get that majority vote. So it seems like people who are talking about change, and we talked about this earlier, this idea of debating, is it safe to vote for the Greens or can I take something that's a bit more traditional? At the last minute, he may have been able to draw back some of that traditional vote.
All right, we're going to head back to the studio.
All right, we're going to look at some of the districts now that the Liberals are hanging on at this point. But again, pretty tight races, too soon to call or to re-elect anyone at this point. Hal Perry hanging on in Tignish-Palmer Road with a lead of 241 votes. We'll go to District 24, Evangeline Miscouche, Sonny Gallant with a lead there of 266 votes, and he is the incumbent in that district. District 10, Charlottetown-Winslow, and a narrow lead for Robert Mitchell, the Liberal incumbent in Charlottetown-Winslow, with the Greens very close behind him at this point in the night. District 25, O'Leary-Inverness, Robert Henderson hanging on there with a lead of 51 votes with Herb Dickinson, the only other the NDP who ever held a seat back in 1996, and he is behind Robert Henderson in O'Leary-Inverness. Robert Henderson, the incumbent there, with a lead of 51 votes. And we'll look at District 8. That is Wade McLaughlin's district, the Liberal leader, Stanhope Marshfield, holding on to that lead, but again, barely holding on with just 20 votes.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the most fascinating leaderboard that I've ever seen on Prince Edward Island. You have 3 parties who are reasonably equal. The Tory vote is turning out to be a really efficient vote. The Green vote not as efficient, although they're leading in 8 right now. And the Liberal Party is sort of paying the price for being in power for 12 years.
And we saw the Liberals double down on Wade McLaughlin in this campaign, not a popular leader, trailing well behind Peter Bevan Baker. But we still saw Wade McLaughlin's face on campaign signs for most of his candidates. We saw Wade McLaughlin front and center delivering, you know, the media addresses as they were unveiling their platform. I had kind of expected maybe the spotlight would move around more than it did, but. They doubled down here with the leader, and we'll see where it gets them.
We'll get to the districts that have just flipped, as you can see on your screen, but here's a look at Charlottetown tonight. You know, we're going to look at districts 14 and 5 in just a minute. There we go. Charlottetown West Royalty going so far with a lead for the Green candidate there with a lead of 68. Galvin Hall, we talked about this four-way race in this district between the Green, Liberal, P.C., and then Bush-Dumville being the independent here.
This is a fascinating race. Yes, Michelle Beaton also leading in Stratford.
Yeah, Mermaid Stratford. That just flipped.
That just flipped, which is, you know, and 45 is not an insignificant vote lead with one of 8 polls in.
The infamous coin tile was referred to as that, so people remembered that this was the Mary Ellen McInnes losing this last election with a coin toss.
Yeah, and you know what we heard from a long time now from pollsters that the Greens' kind of power base was in Charlottetown, and as we're starting to see more of those results come in, it's working out better for the Green Party, and we've seen them also making some gains in Summerside, so that is what we expected to see.
We're going to look at too close to call now, and they're all Liberal Green contest here. So you are looking still at District 8, Stanhope Marshfield, that is the Liberal leaders district there. I mean, these could go either way, but you see there it's really Liberal Green, except for in Stanhope Marshfield where you got the PC candidate in second place. So this is fascinating to see some of these numbers come out and a narrow margin in some of those districts.
Yes, I mean what you're seeing is the Liberals trying to hold on to what they have, and it's a difficult night for them. And the Greens sort of rising up, and if they're not leading a lot of ridings, they're a strong second in a lot of ridings. So it's just a fascinating three-way race that we're seeing on P.E.I. for the first time.
Yep. And from the beginning, we saw the Liberals establish the Charlottetown area as their election battleground. Most of their campaign announcements were here. Wade McLaughlin surrounded by primarily candidates from the capital region. So this is where they were trying to win back support.
So it's still too close to call for any official projection from the CBC decision desk. But, you know, taking a look at these numbers, if you're Dennis King right now in Hunter River Harmony House at headquarters and you're looking at these numbers, you're feeling pretty good about the campaign that you ran.
You should be feeling very good about the campaign you ran. I guess what's fascinating too is that we're at the 14 mark between the Greens and the Liberals, which means if those numbers were to hold, then we would be definitely in a minority situation. So then you have to figure out who you want your dance partner to be, and that in itself could be an interesting discussion. Could the Tories partner with the Liberals after criticizing them for 12 years?
And then we still have that by-election we can't forget about. But right now we have some breaking news, and that is the CBC decision desk electing PC leader Dennis King in Brackley Hunter River District 15. This would be a huge, I'm sure we're going to go live to PC headquarters where there will be jubilation there because this is exactly what they wanted to hear. There's Dennis King giving some hugs there. This is exactly what the PC leader wanted tonight, to win his seat without a doubt and not having a repeat of 2015 when the PC leader, then Rob Lance, lost his seat, tried to govern for a while, but it's just too hard to do when you don't have a place in the legislature.
Look, this is a huge personal win for Dennis King. He's always said that the leader needs to be in the House. He said, I'm going to do it my way. And this is Dennis King being rewarded.
And he played nice, very nice during this campaign. I mean, a lot of people said almost too nice at the CBC debate and clapping and nodding for everybody. But, you know, that seemed to have worked for him, playing the nice guy and you know, criticism for not maybe having a really strong profile going into this or any sort of clear mandate, but it's worked for him tonight.
Well, and what I wondered about watching the CBC debate, there was the question you asked about the provincial nominee program, and Dennis King's response was, well, I'd just like to talk about what a great job government has done attracting newcomers to the province. Oh, well, is this the same party of Stephen Myers in the provincial legislature for the last how many years, hammering away at government over its management of the provincial nominee program? Quite an about-face for this party. It's working out here on election night.
I mean, there were so few punches taken during that debate that really could have been taken, but it was
I don't remember hearing Dennis King take the Liberals to task on anything. I remember a few occasions where he said, I want to give government credit for the good work they've done. I questioned that strategy at the time.
Nice guy, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
well, it is the election of the nice guy. I mean, you can't hold on to that forever. At some point in time, you're going to have to stand up in the provincial legislature, and both sides are going to have to duke it out a little bit over something policy. They can't always be.
Well, that's what you guys are hoping for.
Is this the election where nice guys finish first?
This is the election where nice guys finish first.
This could also be historic, right? Okay, let's take a look at the referendum. Things are beginning to tighten up with the electoral reform and the referendum, but still nowhere near where we should be for the yes side for the yes side to win here.
Well, you can see them getting to 50%, but whether they can get to 17, that's the real question, and we don't know which ridings encompass the 13.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
if it gets us to the 50% but not to the 17, it could be viewed as a weird kind of a no man's land, because we could end up in a situation where a majority of Islanders might support this, but it still might not go through. Right now, that's not happening, though. So.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to meet that 60% of the 27 districts, and we're not even really close. We're at 13 right now, but we'll obviously keep an eye on the reform referendum and what is happening throughout the province tonight. And you know, the yes side and the no side were campaigning through all of this. The referendum commissioner was going around trying to. What are you pointing at there, Paul?
Green added a seat.
There we go. We've got a Green adding a seat. We'll have to see where that's coming from here. But
buckle up.
Buckle up. I mean, this is why at this point of the night it's very difficult for the decision desk to make a call exactly on what is going to happen. The lean is towards a progressive conservative government, but because there's so many variables still tight races, we're going to look at some of the districts where PCs are leading this evening. So starting in Belfast, Murray River, elected for Darlene Compton. So a projection of re-election there for the incumbent Darlene Compton. Moving on to another Alberton Bloomfield. This is Pat Murphy is the incumbent there, but Ernie Hudson maintaining that lead tonight with 65 votes. So still pretty tight, pretty narrow lead, but in the lead and has maintained that lead for this evening. We'll move on to Surrey Elmira. Colin Levy, he's been elected there, elected by our CBC decision desk. Stratford Keppoch, James Elward in the lead, comfortable lead of 307 votes in front of David Dunphy, the Liberal candidate and former mayor of Stratford. Borden Kincora, Jamie Fox, the incumbent, with a lead of 440 votes. Matthew McFarland, the Green candidate, behind him there. And we'll look at another PC district, where PC candidate is winning, I believe. We're going to that. Sometimes it takes a little while for the numbers to trickle in here. But maybe since we're on Jamie Fox, we'll talk a bit about this. Oh, there we go. Sorry, pardon me. We've got Trish Altus in Tyne Valley, Sherbrooke with a lead of 30. So again, this is one of those tight races that we're talking about tonight.
But the Minister of Transportation in third place.
In third. And so that's the headline there. But with the Greens, you know, really making some inroads in districts that were Liberal districts before tonight. We'll see how things, you know, there's still tight races, and this is why we thought this might happen. But
now the PCs do have a lot of birds in hand here. They have a lot of these seats which have been declared elected at this point, so that bodes well for them. But you know, 11-9-6 is just quite the numbers to see on the bottom of your screen there.
It is, and I mean, regardless of how this all ends up by tonight, this is a huge change for Prince Edward Island.
This is, if these numbers were to hold, this would be an historic night by any stretch of the imagination. To have the Greens as the official opposition, potentially to have the Liberals, the governing party of P.E.I, as the third party. If that holds, I hope who is ever in government is not as curmudgeonly to third parties as the Liberals have been over the years at some points. They have sort of extended the benefits a little bit to the Greens, but it's going to be fascinating.
And then there's the, we have to wait for the by-election in District 9, and that could really be pivotal in all of this.
Well, it could, but if the Green and the Liberal number were to hold for 15, then it probably wouldn't swing it one way or another. It would just add to one of the party's totals.
Yeah, if the PCs can bump this up to 13, then it gets interesting, right? Because
Correct.
the PCs can look to try to pick up a seat to get into just a barely majority status, those 14 seats needed for a majority. At this point, they're not there, but I know some of these districts, we seem to have a lot of counting left to do.
All right, we're going to look at some of the districts we haven't seen for a while. So let's check in for District 8, Stanhope Marshfield. That is Liberal leader Wade McLaughlin's district, hanging on to the lead there, but just 47 votes at this point.
It seems to be inching up a few every poll.
So hanging on. He is hanging on to a seat in District 8. Let's look at District 12. Charlottetown Victoria Park, that is NDP leader Joe Burns. That's his district, but the Green candidate is leading there. Richard Brown is the incumbent there. That would be a big blow for Richard Brown.
It would be, and if you look at Joe Burns' number, the NDP had high hopes, and he is trailing significantly in fourth place.
Yeah, there would be disappointment for him.
I know people were sending me photos today. There were posters going up through the district of Richard Brown with his one-finger salute when they were taking their Christmas photo, and a voter shouted out, "Honor the vote." And Islanders know what Mr. Brown showed in terms of a finger there, so I don't know if that maybe has been had an impact on this as well.
All right, we're going to look at one we haven't looked at yet. That is Charlottetown-Brighton, District 13.
This is big. This is
big.
This is another incumbent cabinet minister in what has been a very safe Liberal district since Robert Giz was first elected as opposition leader in 2003. And now Jordan Brown only won this by 22 seats with the recount last time.
That was the PC leader.
That was against a PC leader, considered a very, someone who was supposed to win that.
A lot of people put this in the safe Liberal seat.
They did.
Ole Hammerland is an architect. He's a native of Denmark. He designed the Ark in Spryfield. That was his first project. If this is a Green win, it's a big win.
District 16, the closest race in the province this evening. And that's Heath MacDonald, another...
And see, I would have said this was the safest Liberal seat in the province. And,
Cornwall Meadowbank, Heath MacDonald with a lead right now of 37 votes. The Green candidate, Ellen Jones, behind him. Another tight race, the tightest in the province. What do you make of this? I mean, Heath MacDonald, again, the Liberals, I think, counted on him winning his district.
Well, I think when we talked about three-horse races, that we knew going in that some people who you didn't expect to win would win, and some people who you didn't expect to lose would lose. And that's what we're seeing, at least in some. I mean, Ellen Jones is no weak candidate. No. She was involved in the Charlottetown bypass,
the
appropriation of land issue.
She took government to court there, and I wonder if that didn't help. If we look at this as kind of a referendum on the McLaughlin administration, maybe Ellen Jones, some of the change vote coalesced around her because she directly took that administration on in court and won. So I'm surprised to see that Heath MacDonald is in a fight to retain that district.
A fight, yeah. The closest race in the province right now, District 16, Heath MacDonald winning right now, but by a small margin. The Green candidate coming up closely behind, and then we're seeing Jordan Brown in District 13, Charlottetown-Brighton, second to the Green Party candidate in that district. And I'm surprised by those two in particular, because I really did, and we talked about this going into this, that if the Premier maybe didn't win his seat, that those two, Jordan Brown and Heath MacDonald, could be the leaders in waiting.
Yeah, they are seen as the leaders in waiting, and one of them is trailing and one of them has a slim lead here. So, I mean, if you think about what's the future of the Liberal Party once Wade McLaughlin is no longer leader, that's in question here.
Joe Byrne, the NDP leader, District 12, he is speaking to reporters now. We're going to go that and listen in to what he is going to be saying to reporters. Our Natalia Goodwin, as you can see, is there. Joe Byrne, District 12, the NDP leader. Let's listen in.
Thank you so much, Louise. We're here with Joe Byrne. How are you feeling tonight?
Well, it's politics. I mean, we ran a good campaign. We got our message out, and people in District 12 decided that they were going to elect Carla in the Green Party, and congratulations, Carla. The race well run, and we should give her a round of applause, everybody.
And so, you know, how do you feel, even though, as you said, you fought hard, what are your hopes for the future of the party?
Oh, I think we have a clear message. I mean, it didn't come across in the votes, but the message that I've been hearing every day walking through the district is people happy that we're bringing a message around addressing the issues that are priority to us. How do we eliminate poverty? What do we do about global warming? How do we address the housing crisis? These are all issues that people have brought to us, and we're ready to continue to address them. Yes.
Thank you so much, Joe. Enjoying the time here with your family and your friends.
Thanks, Natalia. Thank you.
We'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
Thank you very much. He fought a hard battle there in District 12. We do have some breaking news for you tonight. The CBC Decision Desk has a projection now. And CBC is projecting a minority government. You notice there's no color with that. That is because it is too close to call whether that will be a Green minority government or a PC minority government. Leaning towards PC at this moment, but there are still some districts that are too close to call tonight. So the breaking news right now is a minority government on Prince Edward Island. This is in itself, regardless of which party has that minority, is historic and is breaking, and this is changing the entire dynamic of politics here on PEI. Who wants to go first?
Well, isn't this exciting? And even on the minority, I mean, there are so many potential ways that the dance card could be formed. It's going to be fascinating. I mean, a lot of these things will fall down to the discussions that occur over the next few days, no doubt, and when we get the final results. But clearly, Islanders voted for change, are voting for change. And clearly Islanders are seeing two parties as the face of change. Dennis King and a rejuvenated PC party, and Peter Bevan Baker, and sort of an upstart Green, you know, whose vote is real.
Yeah, you know, it was interesting to hear, I mean, let's look at this result in the old context of PEI's old two-party system. This just flips over. It's a PC majority. In the new island politics now, we have a minority situation with either the PCs or the Greens at the helm of this. During this campaign, I don't ever remember hearing Islanders saying this before, at least not many of them, but I heard this a number of times. It's time for a minority government. That's what people said. The people who maybe thought that, you know, there were some problems with the previous administration, as these numbers seem to bear out. They said maybe it's time that, you know, they looked at some of the debates and the civility there and the discourse, and people saying, well, that's a good idea, I support that idea, and wanting to actually see our MLAs in the legislature working together instead of against one another. So I don't believe that voters make collective decisions, you know, and nobody gets around a big table and says, let's vote this way. But what they've delivered all the same is they're delivering that minority government. They're saying, we do want to see you work together,
well,
I guess.
It's funny, Paul, you were on the panel after the leadership debate, and I think I actually made a comment saying, well, if we have a minority government here on Prince Edward Island, they're practicing really well with the civility that we saw during this election campaign.
You know, and I got to think that the person who will most benefit from a minority situation is Dennis King. He comes in the Tory party has been known to go to excess in the past. In a minority government, whether the Tories ultimately are in the opposition or as part of the actual government, cooperation will be needed. And I think that is for Dennis, who's a brand new leader, will just allow him to get his feet under him and figure out who he can trust and figure out which way the party needs to move forward. So this could be a very good result for the Tories in the long term.
Well, let's find out from him himself. PC leader Dennis King is standing by live. First of all, congratulations on what's happening here tonight.
Well, thank you very much. It's very flattering to win a seat in the legislature. It's a terrific privilege for me to be elected as the MLA for District 15. Brackley Hunter River, and I'm just really, really honored with that. Very excited about the election results. I knew this was a very close election, and just really liked the way our team went about the campaign and the positive message that we were sending across Prince Edward Island. And it's really nice to be rewarded for that tonight.
So as you look at the CBC projection from our decision desk, yeah, you got a lot of fans there. And you see a minority government, but not quite ready to call whether it's PC or Green. How does that make you feel at this moment in time?
Well, look, I think anyone who knocked on doors, who followed this election campaign, that we knew the government was going to change, and we were measuring what the color of that change would be, and it looks like it's going to be blue and some green along the way. I think it's going to be really interesting to see the results end. We like the way our vote has been tracking. We like the response we're getting from our campaigns, and just really excited about tonight and the future of Prince Edward Island. I think Islanders want their elected officials to work together. That's what we've been promoting. Not so much this bitingly partisan nature of politics that we have allowed to root into our politics. Islanders want us to work together. We want to talk about good ideas. We don't care where they come from. That's what we've been preaching for 6 months. That's what we'll be working on in the legislature.
So what do you think you did right in this campaign, particularly to win your seat in your district tonight in D15?
Well, this is Prince Edward Island politics. You have to get out there and make a connection with people, and you have to be genuine in that approach. You have to listen to what people are saying, but you have to hear them as well. And I think the one thing that we did was actually focus on that very much. That's who I am as a person. That's what we've tried to put together as a team. Our team was really dialed in on that entire approach. And I just think that Islanders are ready for something different. We recognize that. We are eager to give them that. And just I say, very excited about tonight. It's almost a surreal experience to be standing here on the verge of being part of a government in Prince Edward Island. It's a pretty amazing feeling.
And what are your top priorities?
Well, look, we have a whole night to finish up here, but obviously we'll have to get to work on behalf of Islanders. There's a lot of platforms that are going to have to be married into action, so we have to be prepared to work with all the parties, all Islanders, to work on their behalf. Priorities, I think we'll have to figure that out in the days ahead. Tonight, we're trying to see the end of these results to find out what exactly they are, what it means for everybody. But I hope Islanders know it means that there's 3 parties ready to go to work hard for them, and it's going to be a much different legislature when we sit.
And so if this is a PC minority, you're willing to work with the parties and really see that cooperation between the 3 parties?
Oh, absolutely. I think if you followed any of my campaign, you know that I'm a big promoter of collaboration. We've talked about ideas and how we don't care where they come from, if they're good ideas, if they're affordable, if they're doable, and if they benefit Prince Edward Islanders, we want to put them into action. That's the type of a government that I want to be a part of. We want to put the action behind the words to show people that that's what we're all about. And I think Islanders are going to hold us to account to that, and so they should, because this is the island's government at the end of the day. This isn't about colors, this is about Prince Edward Island, and it's time we give the government back to the people that own it, the Islanders.
Okay. PC Leader Dennis King, appreciate you joining us live tonight from your headquarters, and congratulations.
Thank you very much, Louise.
All right, we're going to go out to the panel in the lobby now to get their reaction to what is being unfolding in front of our eyes tonight, guys.
Yeah, Louise, just listening to your conversation with elected PC leader Dennis King. Kathy, what are you thinking?
Well, he is positioned to be a very collaborative person, and he's right. That's what he focused his campaign on. If you think about all the parties that were in this campaign, I do think that the Progressive Conservatives and the Greens are probably the closest together in terms of ideas. You know, if the spectrum is the left and the right, I put the NDP over far on the left, and the Liberals were the big spenders in this campaign, so maybe they're sort of coming center left. But then the Greens would be right there, maybe even right of the Liberals, because they talk a lot about sustainability and living within our means and all sorts of fiscally conservative points of view.
And this hasn't been called yet. We have to reiterate
exactly.
that.
No.
So this isn't it. We know it's a minority government. We don't know what color.
But it's going to be between those 2 parties.
And one other thing we now know, this is what it looks like to be a conservative and be happy in P.E.I. politics, because it's been 12 years of being out in the wilderness. And the other thing is, he's a very inexperienced leader. You know, that's no knock on Dennis King. He's only been a leader for, what, 2 months. And when you look around at the people that have been elected around him, he has a lot of experience to draw upon. So if they do end up forming the minority government, he has a lot of people he can sort of surround himself with who've been around the block more than once, which is a nice thing for Islanders to know.
And if we go to Stanhope Marshfield right now, it was only a 3-vote lead for Wade McLaughlin. It's now an 83-vote lead. But what are your thoughts now, the Liberals, as they see these numbers come in, Kathy?
My thinking is that Wade McLaughlin probably will step away from the party at some point, even if he is elected tonight. He's not the kind of person who strikes me as somebody who's willing to sit in the legislature in the third position.
I suspect that's right, which means you start looking for who will step in, at least in the interim. The names that normally have been coming forward are Jordan Brown, and I know he's in quite a fight there, and it's late in that fight, and Heath MacDonald in the Cornwall area, who it's late in the fight there, looks maybe a little bit healthier for him, because they're going to be looking for someone to lead the party if, as you say, he decides to step aside.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll go back to the studio.
We're going to look at too close to call here as we take a quick look at the map and the change in the color of Prince Edward Island tonight if these results hold by the end. Too close to call. There's some districts that simply are just that. We can't call. The decision desk can't call either way. And you're looking at really honing in on 16 and 10 and what could happen in those districts. If the Green flips, that would give them a big boost. We have seen the PC go up by 1, so we're at 12, 9, and 5. And I believe Stanhope, Stanhope Marshfield, PC over the Liberal there with an 83 change. That is District 8, the Premier Wade McLaughlin's
We
district.
have 2 key cabinet ministers on this list, Robert Mitchell and Heath MacDonald, with these slim leads. Again, people who you never thought could have lost those seats, and it still hangs on these small margins here.
Well, the Liberal in Wade McLaughlin's district, that has flipped now. The Liberal leader losing at the moment to the PC candidate.
Right. And when you start getting into vote numbers 65, 65, 66, up to 113 this late into the evening, those start to become fairly significant in terms of island history. Though, it's tough to make that up in 1 or 2 polls.
So the shift in politics here in Prince Edward Island continues tonight as we track the results coming from the districts. And this is the one that we were watching because it's Wade McLaughlin's district, District 8, Stanhope Marshfield. Blois Thompson now leading there, 83 votes over Wade McLaughlin. So only 1 poll left that could save him right now.
That's a pretty big hill for the Premier to climb when the advance poll was in already. So in all probability, that will be a Tory pickup.
Now, remember Gordon McNeely last time, just to keep some excitement in this.
Okay, yes.
Remember the last poll that came in was the advance poll. Gordon McNeely.
Right, but their advance poll is already in.
I know. I was just trying to.
It's okay. Build excitement. It's all
exciting.
good. I think this has already been exciting. But what if you're Wade McLaughlin and you lose your seat tonight?
Well, if you lose your seat and the Liberals lose government, which they're going to, Wade McLaughlin will meet the moment. That's what he will do. He'll understand the history. He'll understand the importance of transitioning government. He will understand the importance of showing gratitude to his supporters and congratulating the victors. Then he'll probably walk away and I would suspect in 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 years, historians will look at this 5-year period and say, well, we had it pretty good.
Okay, let's look at District 12 at Charlottetown Victoria Park. We're electing Carla Bernard, which is a huge blow to Liberal incumbent Richard Brown tonight.
It's a huge blow for Richard Brown. It's a huge win for the Green Party. It's a huge blow for Joe Byrne. But this probably, if this number, she's elected, so...
projected elected, yeah.
This is the second time Richard Brown has lost. It's hard to imagine him coming back again. So that's a big win.
There you go, the big win, and you can see the big celebration happening at Green Party headquarters at the P.E.I. Brewing Company. We haven't heard or seen the Green Party leader yet, Peter Bevan Baker. He was watching the results from home and then will be traveling to the P.E.I. Brewing Company, I'm sure, for quite the party tonight, Kerry.
Oh, for sure. I mean, the Greens, I think you're happy with this. There were all kinds of seat projections coming into this. Some pollsters saying, well, with these numbers, they should win 22 seats. But then some people on PEI, as you look down the list of races, it was hard to pick out the Greens that were going to have wins, because it was in districts like this where you would look and you say, well, Richard Brown's an incumbent cabinet minister. He's tough to beat. Tim Kaiser, a popular police officer. Joe Burns, a factor in this one. But here it is, Carla Bernard, who's a solid Green candidate for the party. She takes the district for them. So it was hard to see where those opportunities were for the party. This is kind of somewhere between where, I think some people on P.E.I. were looking and saying, I don't see where they make a breakthrough. And then the pollsters saying, well, they're going to win a majority. They've landed somewhere in the middle, and they're probably going to be happy with that.
Are you surprised that some of the re-elects or the elects in some of the districts, some of the key people in the Liberal Party anyway, at this point, gone?
Well, this is what happens when tides turn. I mean, if you look at the map, the Tories have had a very successful night. They're up 4 seats, but they are by and large rural seats. They have one seat in Stratford. Other than that, they don't show up in either Summerside or Charlottetown. If you're the PC party, that's troubling, because it's difficult to win elections on a consistent basis if you don't have support in Summerside and Charlottetown.
Well, let's have a look at Summerside right now. Summerside Wilmot District 21. The incumbent there, Liberal Chris Palmer, won by Lynn Lund by 181. So the projection there is she's been elected in Summerside
Chris
Wilmot.
Palmer is third.
Yeah.
A significant third.
So that's a clear message to the Liberal Party in that district tonight.
It's a clear message. I think it is also that in the case of Lynn Lund, she was seen as a credible, known candidate, and someone that it's not a stretch to say, yes, you can represent us in the provincial legislature.
And then the Green wave continues to Summerside South Drive, and that was the Liberal incumbent Tina Mundy.
Wade McLaughlin wrote the book on Premier Alec Campbell, and there's a chapter on the 1966 election which has some parallels. But in Wade McLaughlin's own words, he drew a couple conclusions that he said, lessons he said the party should have learned from that election but didn't. One, he said you can't buy votes, and two, when the tide is turning, you can't stop it. I think we're seeing the evidence of that right here. The Premier would know that he wrote that.
Okay, and we'll look at District 5, Mermaid Stratford. We're seeing a Green Party member winning in that district as well, up to 125 votes, pardon me.
But only 4 of 8 polls reporting.
Right.
This is our delayed district here.
So
that's the delayed district, that's right. Thank you for the reminder there.
So if you're Randy Cooper or Mary Ellen McGuinness, you're hoping that the last 4 polls are very friendly to your party.
I don't know if we have the advance poll in this one based on the numbers, so that could change things. At least there's a lot of votes at play when that advance poll comes in.
Okay, everything is riding on 2 districts right now. District 16, this is the incumbent Heath MacDonald. If this goes green, Green is second place right now. If it stays there, then we are looking at a PC government. If there's another one, we're waiting for these numbers obviously to go final. The other district we're watching, this is the same story in this district, Charlottetown-Winslow. If this sticks, if this holds, then you are looking at a PC minority government tonight. And we are waiting for the final results from these 2 districts. That will be the determining factor. Did you think it would come down to these 2 districts with waiting?
Certainly not those 2. I mean, Robert Mitchell he's a very good constituency man, and the fact that he's in the scrap of his life tonight speaks to just how strong the Green vote is in the Charlottetown area. It's real, it showed up, and a lot of Liberals are suffering because of it.
And another strong Liberal in Heath MacDonald.
Yeah, it's interesting, though, when we take a look at the popular vote again, you'll see the Greens are not that far ahead of the Liberals in this case, and this is what we see. Here we're having this referendum on whether to switch electoral systems. A first-past-the-post election tends to be unkind to the third-place finisher, and that's what I think we're going to find out when we get the final results for the Liberals here. Wade McLaughlin, the only leader who wasn't in favor of mixed member proportional. In fact, when he was on this set 4 years ago and he was asked about it, he said what he didn't like is he thought it would give minority governments in perpetuity. Well, here's a minority government under first past the post, and here's Wade McLaughlin's party going to suffer under that system. There's some people out there who are probably going to call that poetic justice.
Let's have a look at at District 8, Wade McLaughlin's district, and where things stand now. So earlier in the evening, we were seeing the Liberal leader in the lead, a narrow lead at that, behind Blois Thompson, who, as Paul has mentioned, ran a campaign really targeting Wade McLaughlin in that district. But now Blois Thompson has that lead, holding pretty firm at 83 vote share.
Well, it's an 83 vote with one poll remaining, which is not the advanced poll, so that makes it an uphill climb if you're the premier. Look, Blois Thompson has always been considered a very strong candidate, dairy farmer, active in the community, well known, and you know, when you run advertisements on Compass of an individual trying to take on the premier in a riding, you know the party thinks that they have a serious shot of winning.
The takeaway is run ads on Compass, clearly. Am I allowed to say that?
What did you say? Sorry, I missed that.
I said the takeaway is run ads on Compass. No. I'm joking. I'm joking.
All right. There's 8 districts still counting, by the way. Everything else is final at this point. We're going to look at Alberton, Bloomfield, and another PC gain to a Liberal loss here. This is Pat Murphy's district. He's the incumbent there. A lead of 65 votes for the PC candidate. This is one of those other races that have been pretty close tonight.
They've got a lot of counting left to do up in Alberton, Bloomfield, though, so this one could still flip.
Okay, let's look at District 23, Tyne Valley, Sherbrooke. Wow. Liberal candidate. So this is an elect for Trish Altus, 75 vote gain there, or lead over Hilton McClellan, the PC. The incumbent in this district is Paula Bigger. So you can see celebrations at Green headquarters are continuing tonight. That seems to me a very clear message to Liberal Paula Bigger.
If you want to see the seismic shift in Prince Edward Island politics tonight, look at District 23. A Minister of Transportation defeating a PC candidate and the Minister of Transportation coming third. That's a huge get for the Green Party.
Carrie?
Yeah, it's you know what? I think once the change comes, suddenly it doesn't seem to matter anymore who was a cabinet minister. But transportation is one of the portfolios where you've got all the perks to hand out. You can keep the roads paved. We always hear from Islanders they want to make sure that their roads are paved. So for a Green Party candidate who's I don't think she's run before. I could be mistaken on that. But to come in and take out a transportation minister, and then you know, for that transportation minister to come in third, that speaks to how well the Greens have done tonight and just what kind of a night it is for the Liberals, that to see that rank in the candidates.
All right, we're going to have a look at the map, see the shift in how Prince Edward Island is looking tonight in terms of color. You're still seeing the Liberal holding on to that western tip with a blue wall between there. I mean, the east still strong for the PCs, but that has shifted right over into central Prince Edward Island tonight. And, you know, it's too close to call still in some districts, pardon me. There's 6 here that will show you. And, I mean, look at the margin between these between the candidates here. I mean, it's remarkable that we're still in this part where it's hinging all on some of these districts.
We really should be focusing more on the ridings with sort of more than one poll remaining. Yeah. Because I think those are the ones where the possibility, for instance, Alberton, Bloomfield, there's only half the polls have been counted.
These are the only 6 that are still in progress.
Correct.
So
I guess you want to limit who we can talk to.
Sorry. No, I'm just letting the viewers know at home that you can talk about whatever you want. But it's just fascinating to me that it's coming down to these 6, and particularly the 2 that really jump out, the Cornwall Meadowbank and Charlottetown-Winslow, that could flip to Green.
Right. Well, there's always a perception when you're an incumbent and you're a cabinet minister that unless you've really mucked it up, you've got the profile necessary to win re-election. The problem is that local residents often have something to say about that. And, you know, the Liberal cabinet ministers come with Liberal baggage, and the Liberal baggage is 12 years old. The Premier, Wade McLaughlin, tried to reset the argument or the debate as, but I'm just Premier for 5 years, and this is going for a second term. Well, that doesn't sort of pass the giggle test with ordinary Islanders, and we're seeing it in the results tonight.
Something we haven't talked about a lot tonight, it has been mentioned periodically, but is the change in districts. Some of the districts have changed quite a bit. You know, because I often feel that it's almost an unfair advantage in some cases for incumbents in a race like, you know, in any election. But it's interesting, at least the last 2 times that we've redrawn our districts, there's been a change in government. It might just be a coincidence that that was the time when the change was coming. But both this time around and back in 2007, we had a change from the PCs to the Liberals, and we had redistricting in front of the 2007 election, and here again, and we have another change.
All right, and we do have another change tonight, and that is that Wade McLaughlin, the Liberal leader, has been defeated in his district tonight, and Blois Thompson will be the new MLA for Stanhope Marshfield. Your thoughts?
Well, this will be a difficult pill for the Premier to swallow. I mean, anytime you lose, it's difficult. When you lose government, when you lose your own seat. If you look at the perspective of the Liberal Party moving forward, this may actually not be a bad result, because the party, the riding, has its MLA for as long as a minority government lasts. It perhaps makes it a little bit easier for the Liberals to find their feet after this and figure out which way is up and which way they need to move in. And for the Premier, it'll hurt tonight, but maybe tomorrow there might be some relief. That he's not the leader of a third party.
How much of this, we talked about the vote for the Greens and for Peter Bevan Baker, how much tonight do you think was a vote against Wade McLaughlin?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I've talked before about how I thought Wade McLaughlin was probably frustrated here because he's got a booming economy. He's solved the problem somewhat solved the problem of population growth, maybe created another problem in terms of the housing issue. But I think it was that Wade McLaughlin's priorities didn't always line up with Islanders' priorities. His priority was to spur economic development. And so when Wade McLaughlin wanted to create a new blueprint for the island to grow the economy, I remember in the legislature it just showed up one day. It was the Mighty Island Plan. No one told us it was coming. There was no committee struck, no public consultations. There it came. Other things, though, like poverty reduction, just took longer. And those are the things that I think it turned out mattered more to Islanders.
Okay, we have some breaking news now, and the decision desk has made a projection. Here it is. And the projection is a PC minority government. CBC News, CBC Decision Desk is projecting a progressive conservative minority government, which would mean Dennis King, the PC leader, would be the Premier designate in a minority government at this point. There they are celebrating at headquarters in Hunter River tonight. Our reporter Brittany Spencer has been there all night. That's at Harmony House in Hunter River, where Dennis King is with family and close friends. We spoke to him earlier tonight and says he is ready to take on, happy to cooperate with the other parties. He wants to have a collaborative government, it sounds like. He is ready to cooperate. This is a huge blow tonight for Liberal leader Wade McLaughlin, who is speaking to reporters. So we're going to go live to Stanhope Place and listen in.
We have an opportunity to see a government be formed, likely a minority, to go forward. The thing that I would say, quite frankly, I have most in my mind. There are 111 people who put their names on the ballots for this election, and I want to congratulate and respect all 111 of them. And I'll say in particular the 26 who joined me on the ballot for the Liberals, some very fine people, some people who worked hard, some volunteers behind them who've put everything into it. And I deeply appreciate that friendship, the team that we had a chance to put forward, and thank those people who have come forward for our party and for others to put their names on the ballot in this election.
What do you think happened?
Oh, I think it's as simple as the tide turned. We've had 4 years of good government, responsible government, exceptionally good management of the finances of the province, and we've had a good collegial, I would say, election campaign. So Islanders have had a chance to make a choice, to consider their options, and they've elected 27 people to the legislature, and of course those 27 people are going to have some real work to do.
Est-ce qu'on peut vous demander en français qu'est-ce qui s'est passé ce soir et qu'est-ce qui est votre réaction à ces résultats?
Mais on a à la fin d'une élection qui a été collégiale, on a présenté une plateforme puis une équipe. Et c'est ça qui est important, on a présenté une équipe des individus qui représentent leur communauté. Et il y en a eu justement 111 insulaires qui se sont présentés dans ces 26 circonscriptions. Les électeurs ont fait un choix et on a ces résultats. C'est tout simplement quelque chose qui arrive en politique, c'est que la marée s'est changée.
C'est quoi votre sentiment ce soir?
Moi, je suis fier d'être un insulaire. J'apprécie l'opportunité d'avoir servi comme premier ministre de l'île du Prince-Édouard pour ces 4 ans, d'avoir amené à l'avant des politiques, je dirais, progressistes et d'avoir mené un gouvernement qui a eu beaucoup de succès du point de vue fiscal, économique et social, et qui a offert à l'île un bon gouvernement.
Just finally, very quickly, what are you going to do next? That's an unfair question, but what would you like?
Well, let me say, I do want to say first to the other leaders, to Dennis King, to Peter Bevan Baker, to Joe Byrne, to thank them and to congratulate them on how we have conducted this election campaign, to congratulate Dennis and Peter on their results, and to say again that we've had 111 islanders who put their names on the ballot in this election. We've had a peaceful election. We'll have a peaceful transition. And I intend to be a resident of McMillan Point in West Cove Ed, and to be here with my family and my neighbors and other islanders to continue to make a success of this great province.
Any reaction to losing your own seat?
I put my name on the ballot. We worked hard. We got to all the doors. The one thing that I can say, and I believe all of the other 26 Liberals on the ballot can say, is we left no stone unturned. We presented a good policy. We presented a good team, and we went and did the work that candidates do in an election. And I tonight will go home and have a good night's sleep and get up tomorrow morning. In fact, I've got a keynote speech to deliver tomorrow morning. I'll get up tomorrow morning proud to be a Prince Edward Islander and proud to have been a candidate, and I would say a candidate that did everything I could to present myself to my constituents, and it's a democracy.
Over the past 4 years, what are you most proud of?
I'm proud of having a good government, a responsible government, to have progressive social policy with investments and directions that will be to the long-term benefit of islanders and our province, and to have put our economy and our finances as government on a sound footing, certainly leaving things in very good shape to everyone who's going to be involved in governing the province for the further mandate.
Thank you, everybody.
Let me say one more thing, of course, is I want to congratulate Blois Thompson as a successful candidate in Stanhope Marshfield, and he's a fine person and a good representative of our community, and I look forward to him being our MLA in the future.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin.
That is Liberal leader Wade McLaughlin speaking to reporters. Stanhope Place, he's learned that he didn't win his seat, but a gracious leader there, talking about the candidates on the ticket. He talked about the tough work that they have ahead, as now we're seeing a PC minority government. He says he'll have a good night's sleep.
I have no doubt he will. Wade McLaughlin is an island historian. He appreciates the moment. He would appreciate the significance of the green rise tonight. And I'd just like to sort of jump on what Kerry said earlier about, is it about just a vote against the Liberals? It's not just a vote against the Liberals. The green surge is also a vote against the PC party and how they have operated in opposition for 12 years. This should have been, given our history as a province, a PC wipeout. The last election, the PC should have won. So in many ways, the green surge is a a vote against the establishment on Prince Edward Island, and Wade McLaughlin, true to his nature, has met the moment of a very difficult evening.
Yeah, there's the share of the vote that there you can see on your screen. And, you know, he mentioned there in that speech and in talking to reporters, Carrie, the one thing that he campaigned on very strongly in this election, and that was the economy.
Yeah, and that's, you know what, he can be proud of that record. I mean, how many times as the political reporter, I can't count them, under the Robert Giz administration did we hear that, well, the balanced budget is coming, we're putting it off a year, we're going to reach that balanced budget. Wade McLaughlin came in and said, he put it off by, he said it's going to take us a couple years in that election. The PCs at that point were saying, well, we can balance it next year. You know what, Wade McLaughlin came in, did finally deliver a balanced budget, and repeated it with another one and another one after that. So he's right, the financial house is in order for the incoming PC minority government. Something else he said too, I mean, when Wade McLaughlin first became premier, he called on all members of the Legislative Assembly to call on their better natures. He wanted to rise the level of debate there. We've mostly seen that, not always seen that. We had such a collegial campaign, although, you know, the premier was the one who was firing shots in the opening rounds of that and then sort of scaled that back. I think sometimes he was maybe conflicted with himself in terms of the leader that he wanted to be and what was deemed either by him or his advisors as the political necessity of the day.
Could he have done something different? Could the Liberals have done something different? Or do you think this was almost a foregone conclusion?
I think if he had recognized perhaps 2 or 3 years ago that some of the language that he would use was not being appreciated or understood by ordinary Islanders who had a perception that the economy may be booming, but the Premier didn't have a sense for how difficult their everyday lives are. Maybe. I mean, it's a mug's game to look back in history.
Yeah.
I do think, you know, the Liberals gave themselves the best opportunity to actually have some success in this election. They ran a pretty good campaign. Clearly, there was an anti-incumbency move and a vote for change. And as we've said repeatedly, when the tide is running, you can't stop it.
Let's look at Liberal holds, districts that the Liberal candidates are holding on this evening. So that is Hal Perry in Tignish Palmer Road. He is re-elected there. He's the incumbent there.
Maybe the best beard in Canadian politics.
I took a look at, by the way, the pictures.
Votes,
the pictures from 2015. I didn't even recognize Hal Perry without his beard. So the beard
same
stays
guy under that beard. I can tell you that.
on the western tip of Prince Edward Island with the re-election of Hal Perry. Moving on to other districts that the Liberals have retained their seat. That is Evangeline Miscouche, with Sonny Gallant winning with 331. A lot of people thinking that Nick Arsenault could have swept in here, but Sonny Gallant holding on.
Well, and kudos to Sonny Gallant. I mean, he has been traditionally a great vote getter. Nick Arsenault, not overly far behind given some of the pluralities that Sonny Gallant has had in the past, 331. And this would be an example of where the Greens will say we can build on for the future.
Yeah, Sonny Gallant's lead in this election is down about 500 votes from what he won with last time around.
District 25, O'Leary Inverness, Rob Henderson holding on to his seat in O'Leary Inverness.
Well, first and foremost, this will be disappointing for Dr. Herb Dickinson, who thought that he could make sort of the Tiger-esque comeback.
Gave it a good fight there.
He gave it a very good fight. And, you know, 209. Rob Henderson will be pleased with this, and he will certainly be an active member of the Liberal opposition, if indeed they end up in opposition.
Okay, let's look at District 10, another one we were closely watching and still have not projected a winner. In this district, it is still a tight race. We're seeing a lead of 71 votes for Robert Mitchell. You know, it still could flip to Green, but so far hanging on.
It could flip to Green, but with one poll remaining, it's unlikely that 71 votes will be found.
Okay, we're going to go to District 16 now, and another one. Okay, we can now say that Heath MacDonald has been re-elected in Cornwall Meadowbank. Not really a surprise that he would hang on to his seat, but the Green candidate gave him a good run for his money tonight.
Green candidate gave him a good run, but 506
he's
total.
Got a big lead. We must have been waiting on the advance poll here.
Yeah.
This must have been another Gord McNeely moment here.
Well, Steve Bruce, my colleague, is at the P.E.I. Brewing Company. It's where Green Party headquarters are tonight, and he has probably a very happy person beside him this evening, and that is Hannah Bell.
That's right. Yeah, we're still waiting on the Green leader, Peter Bevan Baker, to arrive here, but just heard a big whoop go up as Hannah Bell arrived here. One of two Green incumbents. You're re-elected. You hear the crowd around you here. What's the feeling tonight?
Obviously, very, very happy and very excited crowd tonight. It's a really historic night for us and for the island.
When you look at all those green seats in the Charlottetown area, in the Summerside area, how do you explain that success, getting all those votes in the two island cities?
Well, I mean, we've had a phenomenal slate of candidates from the beginning, and certainly, you know, really strong presence in both of those areas. Strong across the whole province, but those areas have been really well received at the door. Obviously, we had previous by-election with Lynn Lund in the Summerside area, and then obviously my by-election. We've had some pretty recent experience on the ground in both of those areas, and we've got, you know, good campaign experience there, and it really showed.
If someone had told you coming into this election that the Greens would be the official opposition to the minority government, would you have been happy with that?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, we're happy with having secured resecuring our seats for both Peter and I. That's really historic for P.E.I. just to do that. The fact that we've now got a full caucus and no longer the third party, you know, and in a minority government, our role is going to be critical, and that is exciting. But just this is such a changing scene, because absolutely the Greens are a leading force now in the political space in PEI, and it's fantastic that the public has put their support behind us in that way and given their trust to us in their vote.
I'll let you get and chat with your supporters here. Congratulations.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you.
Louise, back to you.
Thank you very much. And we're going to look now at some of the districts that the PC candidates have won tonight, and perhaps some key people that you might see in cabinet under a PC minority government with Dennis King. And so Stephen Myers, I think no-brainer here, he would be a key candidate under a Dennis King government.
Yes, in terms of cabinet, one of the challenges that Dennis King is going to face right off the bat is the bench strength that he has in the eastern end of the province. And you try to form a cabinet, you know, that's based on gender balance and geographic balance. The Tories don't have gender balance. They've only elected one, and they're a little light on the geographic balance. So, you know, there may be some potential people like Stephen who should be there, but may lose out on numbers.
He's also got a big transition, Stephen Myers, in terms of trying to match the tone that Dennis King wants. Now, Stephen Myers has spent all these years in opposition. He's been a very effective opposition MLA, but...
Dennis has never explained how he's going to rein in his own caucus.
Well, okay, let's move on to District 4, and that's Darlene Compton. Where does she fit into all of this?
A senior portfolio, perhaps finance, perhaps health, which she would have some experience with, social services, something like that.
Education.
Yeah, she could almost pick her department.
Okay, District 6. Stratford-Keppoch, James Aylward, the former PC leader.
Again, James Aylward, and he is actually an urban Tory MLA, so he can go anywhere, plus a former...
He's pretty key in all of this.
Yes, James Aylward.
And he was never more effective than as a health critic, I would say.
Correct,
so,
yes.
That would be now, of course, as we go east, we're putting everyone in cabinet here. Dennis King's probably not going to be able to do that, but let's...
We'll talk about that in a minute and what happens next under a minority government, which we have never seen on Prince Edward Island. So Sidney McEwen, he was always a bit of a rock star in the PC caucus anyway.
He will be in cabinet somewhere, and it will not be a minor portfolio.
All right, District 18, Rustico, Emerald, and Brad Trivers. Ran for the leadership?
Ran for the leadership. Certainly geographically, he fits the bill. You can see sort of the issues the Tories have is they're so front-loaded with men that it's going to be difficult. It depends who they partner with on a minority government.
Well, and this is the big...
No island government has ever had to do this on a minority basis. So if we're talking of a cabinet of how many, 9 or 10 people, there's not much of a backbench left there.
Could they go to the Greens to look for... uncharted territory.
Coalitions aren't out of the question.
Dennis King has promised to create a Minister of Fisheries specific. Fisheries is controlled by the federal government, so it's largely just a way to give another MLA a car, a pension, and the cabinet minister's salary. So I would think that promise may wait a while.
What about Matthew McKay?
He was a stand-up member of their caucus in opposition, and geographically as well, he kind of fits into place where because he's just not in the east, so he fits in.
He fits in. Okay, we're going to check in on the referendum. Of course, that yes/no vote that was also the yellow ballot. So we're leaning towards a no. It's still can't say for sure as much of this night has been about, but
there's
popular
just 11
vote,
polls left.
Yeah, at 48.9.
They will not get to 15, and they will not get to 17.
Yeah. So it's leaning towards the no side. So that would be a big disappointment for both the PCs and the Greens, who really said they were in favor of mixed member proportional government.
Well, if they were to form a minority government together, maybe they would bring that
they
forward.
Would get it in.
Well, they said they would honor the vote. They said they would honor the vote, and this is the vote right here. So this is what we get. So now the hockey series is tied at 2-1. Is it a best of 3 series? Is it a best of 5? Well, there's no hockey game on tonight, is there?
No, you're not missing anything. Now, I'm curious. I want to dive in a little bit to this minority government issue, because we haven't seen this before. If it had been, we know we saw in New Brunswick the issue of that 1-seat difference and the incumbent government going to Lieutenant Governor to say.
So in New Brunswick, the Liberals didn't have as many seats as the PCs, but they did win the popular vote. And it's always, technically in this case, as I understand it, the Liberals on paper get the first opportunity to go to the Lieutenant Governor and say, we can put together a government that can win the confidence of the House, because they're the incumbent government.
Right.
But because they're in third place here, there's no mandate for them to do that. So Wade McLaughlin made it clear he doesn't even want to try to go down that road. You can't do it with 5 seats.
So what happens then?
Well, I mean, then it's for the PCs, I would expect, to come up with their own plan to go to the Lieutenant Governor, for Dennis King to say, I can command the confidence of the House, but what plan will he have to do that? Will it be, there could be a coalition. Could there be a coalition between PCs and Liberals? I don't know if that's out of the question or not. Or it could be, we've seen in other provinces there can be a signed agreement for, in BC, I believe it is, that the NDP has an agreement with the Greens that they will support them for a period of, I think it's 2 years on confidence motions to keep the government afloat.
They don't seem to like that phrase, coalition.
No, maybe not. But one thing that may help the political parties cooperate a little bit more is the new financing rules and regulations for political parties. They've just all expended a huge amount of money, and they need to fill up the coffers before the next election. So, we're going to have an air of cooperation. There's no doubt about it, and we don't know exactly what that's going to look like. But
so this conversation goes on. This may be wrapping at the election night. We're waiting for Peter Bevan-Baker, the Green Party leader, to speak to supporters. So that's what we're waiting on. But the conversation and the conversations between the parties, really, that's going to just start.
It is going to start, and it will be a test right off the bat of Dennis King's leadership and his sort of sincerity to hear other people out and maybe make accommodations that have never been made before. Would he offer a seat in cabinet to a Green member or two, or would he offer a seat in cabinet to Liberals? The other thing that I would say for Dennis King, if he forms government, is don't make the mistake of Angus MacLean, which was ask every deputy minister for their resignation prior to becoming premier, because if you are in a new administration, there is nothing that can stop you faster than the bureaucracy. And if Dennis King is able to form some type of minority, he deserves the right to have the people in place that he needs in place to move his agenda forward. Doesn't mean he has to get rid of all the deputies, but certainly some of them wouldn't be the type of people that the Tories would be looking for.
If you're the Liberals or the Greens right now, you're thinking, what are the items we want to put up there as maybe the price to win our support in those confidence motions to keep a PC minority government afloat. There was a lot of crossover in the various platforms. In particular, the PC platform had a number of items in common with the Green platform in this campaign. So there's already some items.
A level of cooperation already sort of built in, it seems. But
yeah, so what might be offered as an inducement, if you support us, we'll give you this element from your platform.
But if you are the Greens, I think you have to be careful about partnering with one of the two old parties, because the reason you have 9 seats is because Islanders were frustrated with both the Liberals and the Tories.
Let's look at some key Green Party winners in tonight's election. So this Hannah Bell, District 11, well liked within that district. Charlottetown Belvedere, she was just the second Green to get a seat in the legislature. She will be a key member of this Green government.
Absolutely going forward. And
Not a Green government, just to clear that.
Green, sorry, Green Party.
The Green Caucus, yeah.
Just changed the talking point really fast.
Sorry about that.
You know, there was some speculation that when Hannah Bell won the by-election, that she won it in part on the coattails of Peter Bevan Baker. She won this riding by herself tonight because the riding changed from what she won 18 months ago. It was a more difficult boundary for her, and she won with a reasonably comfortable plurality of 288.
So I think, you know, and we talked about this when she won that by-election in District 11, that seemed to be the changing of the guard, even at that point, that those in that district voted for the candidate as opposed to regular party lines.
I thought that race was about the candidates. I thought Hannah Bell went out in that district in the by-election and just showed on the doorstep that she was the best of the candidates on offer in that race. And when she got in the legislature, if there was any question, well, whether she rode Peter Bevan Baker's coattails, she proved herself in the legislature as an effective member.
Yeah, she campaigned on issues within that district specifically. Let's look at District 14, Charlottetown West Royalty, and the Green win there. 149 vote lead. Gavin Hall, could he be a key person within the Green
I just
caucus?
want to clear, we have not called this one yet, is that right?
We have not called this one.
9 of
There's
10
a
polls.
poll
Right,
missing,
9 of 10,
and
yep.
we could be are we in another situation where we're waiting for the advanced poll based on these numbers, I would say.
I'm not sure about that, but at this point, it could, if Gavin Hall is elected by tonight, would he be a key figure, do you think, in the Green caucus?
Well, potentially. I mean, and that's one of the things that will evolve pretty quickly is just how cohesive a unit this is, and that will be Peter Bevan Baker and Hannah Bell's challenge, as they're the ones with expertise, is how do you build a caucus that can reach out to all Islanders on the broad scope of issues that are impacting Islanders and promote yourself as sort of an alternative going forward.
Another key district that the Greens took tonight, and that is Tyne Valley Sherbrooke. Paula Bigger, was the incumbent there, the Liberal, the transportation minister. We've talked about what a blow this is for her, but a huge win really in Tyne Valley Sherbrooke for Trish Altus.
Yeah, and she's involved. She would be one of these local candidates who would not have a provincial profile, but is known and respected in the community. Community researcher by vocation, has been involved in a lot of poverty advocacy and that type of thing. So this was one of the most I mean, this sort of tells the tale of the tape when the Minister of Transportation comes third in P.E.I.
In District 21, Summerside Wilmot, with Lynn Lund winning this district. Chris Palmer, again, we're seeing the incumbent, the Liberal, in third behind the PC, and then, of course, the Green.
And Lynn Lund has been a key member of the Green Party. You know, as Peter Bevan Baker, once he came in, appointed a shadow cabinet. He made Lynn Lund his deputy leader, tried to build up a cadre of candidates that could run and win seats in an election like this one. So we're seeing a number of those shadow cabinet members elected tonight. So that was a good strategy to try to build up a party from almost nowhere.
Okay, so we've heard tonight from the Liberal leader Wade McLaughlin. We've heard tonight from PC leader Dennis King, and we've heard from NDP leader Joe Byrne. We have not heard from Peter Bevan Baker yet. Peter Bevan Baker decided to watch the results come out with his family, and then he's going to be heading down to the P.E.I. Brewing Company. And then we just saw Hannah Bell. We heard from her. She's arrived there. So all eyes are waiting on the door at the P.E.I. Brewing Company to see when Peter Bevan Baker will get there and what he will say to his supporters. So what's your prediction? This might be him. Yes, it is. There we go. A live look at the P.E.I. Oh, and yep, high fives and a very jubilant. I mean, we saw the jubilation in the last election when he won a seat. And now 9, his own seat, Hannah Bell's, and some key members who were running for his party in this election, and a very happy Peter Bevan Baker tonight.
Well, he should be incredibly proud of what he's built. I mean, he took a Green Party that was looked upon by a lot of Islanders as a party that was way out on the extreme, and he's brought it back to the middle, and he's focused on fiscal policy, he's focused on policy that impacts individuals, and he's focused on the environment, obviously. And it resonates. I mean, if there's an MLA in this House that is close to J. Angus MacLean, sort of the revered premier from 1979, it would be Peter Bevan Baker.
One thing we haven't talked about is, did the Greens try to form a coalition or a partnership with the Liberals, which is within the realm of possibility. I'd be surprised by that, but in a minority, that could happen.
All right, Peter Bevan Baker, Green Party leader, at the podium now, so we're going to be quiet for a few moments and let him address supporters there. I was just checking my Twitter feed to see if Elizabeth May has tweeted yet. I don't see anything from her yet, but I expect we will see a great reaction from the federal Green leader. Here we go.
Thank you. Thank you very much. For me personally, I don't think I've ever felt as overwhelmed with both joy and grief simultaneously. My heart is so full, but it's also breaking. As you all know, a dear friend of mine and many of you, Josh Underhay, and his son died in a dreadful accident on Good Friday. And Josh has been a companion on my political journey for many years. And his absence this evening leaves an emptiness that just cannot be filled. Besides being a beloved teacher and a passionate political advocate and a devoted father and so many other things, Josh was also a brilliant musician. And that's actually how Josh and I got to know each other, was through music. Through our shared love of music. He, like me, Josh played the trumpet. He played it much better than I ever did or will. But Josh and I were both trumpet players, and I don't think Josh ever played a boring trumpet solo. I don't actually. I don't think boring was in Josh's vocabulary. In any of the languages that he spoke so fluently and so effortlessly. But exciting was, and energetic, and daring, and humorous, and sparkling, and sensitive, and creative, and beautiful. All of those words, and so many more, describe the man that we lost just a few days ago. And loving. Was there ever a more loving father? And all of our hearts break that young Oliver will never get to shine his light in this world. A light, I have no doubt, that would have been pure and bright, nurtured lovingly as it was by Carrie and Josh. Josh's trumpet solo was far too short. The music was muted by a dreadful suddenness. But Josh played so well. He played so beautifully, so alluringly. And we all heard what Josh had to say. Live well together. And include everybody as you build community. Live on this earth gently. And above all else, care about the children and their future. And Josh's joyful and inspiring song will echo across this island for many years to come. So I've been thinking a lot about music over the last few days. And many of you, like me, are probably feeling conflicted or confused or perhaps even guilty as we celebrate and mourn at the same time. But let's remember that sorrow is a single note on the scale of human emotion. You cannot create music with a single note. You need to add and blend and harmonize more notes. There is often beauty in a complex arrangement of musical notes. And there is hidden grace in complex emotions. So I hope tonight that we can be courageous and kind to each other as we open ourselves to experiencing many different notes tonight. not just sorrow, but joy and gratitude and longing, but mostly hope. Because today is about hope. The hope that we can create a better future for our children and our grandchildren. And the Green Party entered this election asking Islanders to put their faith in us, to introduce a new way of governing, a government based on the core principles on which the Green Party is founded, living within our ecological and our financial limits, local self-reliance, grassroots democracy, a just society, active citizenship and self-determination, and a culture of peace. We asked Islanders to trust us, to bring a new long-term vision to decision-making, to implement meaningful reforms to make government more accountable to the legislature and to the people of Prince Edward Island, and to place the interests of our constituents ahead of the interests of our party. Islanders heard those commitments and they've responded with enthusiasm. Islanders responded by granting us a record number of seats, by far the most seats ever won by a Green Party in Canada. And as a proponent of proportional representation, I'm a strong believer in the capacity of minority governments to create a collaborative environment where competing parties can put the interests of constituents and Islanders first. I'd really like to congratulate Denny King, a fine man and a good friend. Congratulations, Denny. And I'm looking forward to meeting with the leaders of the other parties to discuss how we can move forward from here and work together. Many Islanders have commented on just how cordial this election has been, and I believe that bodes well for a productive 4 years of working in unison for the benefit of all Islanders. Indeed, the response by all the parties this past weekend has reminded me how blessed we all are to live in a province where people put community ahead of partisan interests. P.E.I. is a very special place, and it never showed its beauty and its strength more clearly than it has done in the last few days. My God, I love this island. And of course, politically, we've entered into uncharted territory here on Prince Edward Island. But you know what? I have confidence in our political system. I have confidence in the goodwill of the other parties and our ability to work together and to provide Islanders with the good governance that we all deserve. So before I leave this stage, there's a number of people I have to thank. And so I promise I'll keep this brief. There are so many. First, I want to thank all of the candidates from all of the parties. It's not an easy thing to put your name forward. It's not easy to step into the spotlight, a very bright and harsh spotlight sometimes, and seek public office. And every single candidate, every one of the 111, deserves our respect and our appreciation. I especially want to thank my fellow candidates in District 17. So thank you so much to Judy and Chris and Dawn for a well-fought battle in New Haven, Rocky Point. And thank you to the constituents of New Haven, Rocky Point, who had confidence in me to carry on the work that I've been doing on their behalf for the last 4 years. And thank you to all Islanders for an amazing turnout yet again at the polls. I also want to thank the leaders of the 3 other parties, to Denny and Wade and Joe. Together, I think we've conducted a campaign that makes all Islanders proud. A campaign noted for its civility and the positive debate on some very complex and divisive issues. And when I consider the rancor and the pure nastiness, actually, that sometimes came out in some other more recent provincial elections, again, I feel blessed to live in a place where people and community are placed above partisan bickering. My God, I love this island. I also want to thank our provincial campaign staffs, Jordan and Cynthia and Shannon and Callie and Jonathan. Amazing! And to my team from the office of what used to be the third party. To Patrick and Joanne and Nathan, a small but mighty crew, amazing people. Thank you so much for everything that you've done. They generously donated their time and their skills throughout this campaign. They responded tirelessly to all sorts of questions, and just the most wonderful people that we should all feel extraordinarily proud of to have on our side. And in my own district, I want to thank the massive team of volunteers that helped out in my district and Mac McFarland's district, neighboring District 19, to Sue and Perry Williams, to Sarah Saunders, and to Roy Johnston. Amazing, amazing people. And I deeply am grateful for the help from Green Party elected officials from other provinces who came here, to Elizabeth May, to David Kuhn, and to Megan Mitten, all of who came here and helped out. Thank you so much to that, and all of the other Greens from across the country who came to be a part of this excitement. Especially, I have to say, to dear Elizabeth, who, as you probably know, got married yesterday, and she was here 5 days before her wedding. What an amazing woman. Congratulations, Elizabeth and John. I hope you're having a wonderful honeymoon wherever you are. And of course, none of this would have been possible at all without my amazing wife.
Okay, you're listening to Green Party leader Peter Bevan Baker on a very successful election campaign, and he mentioned Elizabeth May there. She is on her honeymoon and apparently said that her new husband was forcing her to hand over her blackberries for the honeymoon, so she may not tweet tonight, but you never know with Elizabeth May. Obviously a very emotional Peter Bevan Baker there. Joy and grief. Heart is full, but heart is breaking in talking about his friend, his colleague, his Green Party colleague, Josh Underhay, and his young son who were killed on Friday in a canoeing accident. So that, you could see the emotion, you could hear the emotion in his voice. So it's joy, but it's heartbreak underneath as well for the Green Party leader. Talked a lot about cooperation there as well, and certainly you're going to see that, or have to see that, in a minority government. We're going to have a look now at some of the final numbers. We're still waiting on 2 districts for final numbers, by the way, but taking a look at voter turnout this time around, if we can bring that board up to show you that. We'll also then look at women in government now. But so there's voter turnout. Down So we're at 77.6%. That's down 3.1 points. That's a change. That's quite a dramatic shift. The average since 1966, I have in front of me, 83.2%. So a drop in turnout.
I would, I'm a bit
Unofficial.
surprised that my guess is a good chunk of Liberals and maybe a smaller chunk of PCs stayed home tonight.
And District 9 not voting. There may not have been a larger
yes, of
turnout
course,
for
yes,
They
yes.
were voting in the referendum,
Yeah.
but not for the candidates. So,
Yeah, so I don't know how that factors into the turnout there as well. You're right. And really, on PEI, anything under 80% is something we're going to be disappointed with.
It's a personal insult.
It kind of is, yeah.
okay, we're going to look at women. And the shift in that. So I believe we're going to see a change of +1. And that's really a credit to the Green Party, who is adding to that. So there is a +1 change when it comes to women in government. Zero change for the PCs, down 4
Are we creating history just in the fact that more than 50% of the Green caucus is female?
Yeah, that's pretty remarkable. 5 out of 9 there for the Green Party, and we're and I don't know for how many of those are elected at this point. If some of
All
those
of
are
them.
still, they all are.
Yeah,
So
they all are.
5
We're
out
just
of
waiting
9,
on
yep.
D10 and D14. So
Yep.
let's have a look at the referendum now, and what is happening there tonight. So they were looking for the threshold there, as Kerry mentioned earlier, as we've been talking about, 50.1 for that popular vote in 17 of the districts, and just not meeting that expectation, not getting past that threshold on either side. So it looks like a no.
They picked up 0.9 of 1% in about 5 polls.
They got 5 polls left.
So they've got 5 polls left. So, you know, if they're the right polls, they might get to 50. It's unlikely, but they're not going to get to 17.
They're not going to get to 17. Okay, and so, you know, we've been talking about these 2 districts tonight, District 10 and District 14, that we still don't have final results in. I'm not sure if we can pull those boards up there, but District 10 is coming up, and we are talking about Charlottetown-Winslow. Liberal incumbent there is Robert Mitchell. He's still in the lead, and he's held on to that tonight, but just 71, and we're not seeing a final result in Charlottetown-Winslow as of yet. And also we'll take a look at District 14. Again, this is not a final result. This was that interesting District 14, the four-way race that we talked about before the election. Gavin Hall, the Green Party candidate, in the lead there with 149 votes.
Well, you wonder if Bush Dumville, as a former Liberal, Gordon McNeely running as a Liberal but a former NDP, did Bush take Liberal votes away from Gordon McNeely? At the same time, there's not enough there with these numbers to make a difference, but this is another one where I'm looking and I'm thinking we're missing the advanced poll here, so there's a lot of votes that could still come into play here and shift things.
Okay, so I'll tell you what we're waiting on. Full disclosure, we're waiting for Dennis King. He was heading down to the Rod, Charlottetown, I believe. Charlottetown, where they were going to be having the PC celebration tonight. I think we have a live shot there. Oh, Natalia running through. Yes, our cameras are trying to get in place because I believe Dennis King is just showing up there. So he will come in and have a speech to his supporters there. So he was watching, of course, from Hunter River Harmony House with some close family and friends, sort of a tight-knit little group there. And then after the ballots were counted and the vote was done, he was going to make his way down to the Rod, Charlottetown to have his speech. And you can hear there that familiar song that we heard during the leadership convention. Can you hear that? You remember that, Carrie? You and I talked about, what is it? I want to make you happy. I wish you could be happier, I believe, is the theme song that was for his leadership campaign. And he is now, and that wasn't that long ago. And one of the questions that night, you and I spoke about this, was is he ready for the election?
That was February, and one of the criticisms from the people running against him for the leadership was he didn't even have a platform as part of the leadership campaign. He was going to talk to Islanders afterwards and put that together, and the criticism was you won't have time.
One of the key things that Dennis King faces is ensuring that the key people around him are the right ones to put the party, the province, and Dennis first. It's going to be fascinating because he has, like every person, he has strengths and he has weaknesses. He has to make sure that the people he has around them make his weaknesses strengths.
And we talked about this during the leadership convention as well when he won the leadership, is that he had a strong caucus, the PC caucus behind him, some strong faces that were re-elected tonight, and so he will have that strength going forward.
Well, what the PCs had kind of was a government in waiting in their opposition, but without a leader all these years, because back in 2015 their leader didn't win his seat, and it took them this long to, in fact, really, I think it's been since 2007 they've been looking for the person who can come in and lead them into this situation. Ever since the Pat Binns government went down to defeat, they have not been able to fill that leadership void.
I think one of the challenges he's going to face, and perhaps the fact that they are actually the leading party tonight will take care of a lot of it, is how do you control that caucus? Because that has been one of the issues over the years, that they've just sort of gone madly off in all directions. Dennis has set a tone. It's a benchmark. It's now what everyone in that caucus needs to meet, and that needs to percolate through policy, through interaction with other parties, and through development of how this government moves forward.
There'll be some in the PC caucus that won't want to play nice with some of the other parties?
I just think it'll be Stephen Myers, who is great on education. You can sit down and have a wonderful discussion with him, but he's been known as the guy who is a little dirty in the House, and it's going to be fascinating to see what role what role he plays in this government. Stephen wasn't alone. I mean, there were others. And so making the transition from a strident opposition to an effective government in an era when the new leader and the premier designate is saying it matters to be civil. We don't have to argue all the time. We can get along with our opposition, and we won't be sort of knocked for it. That's a different challenge.
That shift was a complete 180 for some caucus members like Stephen Myers. On the other hand, for people like Brad Trivers, Sidney McEwen, not really much of a shift at all. I think they were already ready for that. But do you have to include someone like Stephen Myers, who has great strengths, but just has never had that tone that Dennis King has now basically imposed on the party? So that is a challenge.
But he's such a high-profile PC that you would wonder. I mean, you heard it in Peter Bevan Baker.
Love that we're talking about him all this.
Yes, well, Peter Bevan Baker in his speech there, you heard that. My good friend, Denny King. I mean, you're already seeing, we saw it through the campaign, but you're already seeing, even in his speech tonight, my good friend, Denny King, that camaraderie that exists and obviously will extend. And
I haven't seen that in 35 years.
We don't see it very much in politics at all, especially these days.
I mean, we'll see how long it lasts, which will be one of the fascinating things to watch as we go forward, because ultimately, question period is about debating government policy and actions, and it's going to be, at some point in time, they're going to have to be challenged, but they can do it in a civil way, and they can do it through committees and ensuring committees are fair.
Okay, we're still waiting for Dennis King to show up. At the top of the clock, we're going to say goodbye to our viewers on News Network, so we'll count down to that a little bit here. But I'm also wondering about, and we'll go through this a bit later as well, is the headlines tomorrow, will they be different locally versus nationally? That's what I'm curious about, because so much national attention.
I think the national media got caught up in the fact that the Greens could form a government based on one or two polls. I think locally the headline is Green Party surges to official opposition, because really this should have been the Tories' election to lose. In a change election. They should have, this would have been a majority government at any other time in our history.
But if you're outside Prince Edward Island and you're the national media, are you looking at this as a blow to the Green Party?
No, I don't think you are.
Okay.
It was more than a couple polls. It was, a good year's worth of polls that were showing the Greens in the lead, not in majority government territory or anything like that. But I think outside PEI, there's a PC minority here on PEI. That's the big story for us.
Yes.
Not for the people outside the province. The Greens becoming, if the official opposition status is what we're looking at, that's a significant national
They will be
story.
honing in on that. Okay, so you're looking live now at Dennis King.
He was just greeted by Jim Lee, former PC premier.
There you go. So we're watching him. We're gonna go to him live when he goes to the podium. We are going to bid farewell in about 20 seconds time here to our viewers on CBC News Network. On News Network, you've been watching a historic election on Prince Edward Island, a minority government the likes of which we have never seen on PEI before, and a minority government, PC minority government, with the Green gaining 9 seats in Prince Edward Island. So you've been watching along with us. We appreciate it. Good night to you on CBC News Network. And we're staying live on CBC television, on radio, and online to hopefully hear from the PC leader and in this PC minority government. So stay with us tonight. We're going a little bit later because we do want you to be able to hear from Dennis King. We heard from him earlier, but that was before we had projected a PC minority government. He knew at that point that he had won his seat in District 15. Obviously very happy about that. We knew at that point, he said, talked a lot about the cooperation between the parties. We then heard from Peter Bevan-Baker, my good friend, my colleague at Denny King. So you can already see that cooperation coming. And, you know, I think from the national perspective, if we could just go there just quickly, is that that cooperation, right? Just breaking in right now, because Charlottetown-Winslow, we do have a final result there where we're waiting for D10 and D14. And there we have the re-election of incumbent Robert Mitchell. He must be breathing a sigh of relief tonight.
Well, and that's a big hold for the Liberals as you try to sort of regroup and figure out your way forward. Robert Mitchell is a steady hand. He is in Charlottetown, which is a good spot for the Liberals to have a foothold.
I don't know if we can pull up D14, District 14, to have a look at how that's shaping up as well. Charlottetown West Royalty, where we had that 4-way race, and still no final result from that district. But the Greens holding on to the lead there with 149 votes over the Liberal candidate, Gordon McNeely, who ran for the NDP. So in the last election, we are going now live to the Rod Charlottetown in Charlottetown to hear from PC leader Dennis King on his win tonight. Take a listen.
Forgive me for just being a little bit excited. We've been through a lot of these where they don't end this way. So for 1 second, let us drink this up. It's a very big win for this team. Congratulations to everybody in this room for making it happen. Very awkward with Kerry Wynn right in front of me talking here. I feel like I'm yelling at you, but I'm really not, you know. Well, first of all, I want to begin by saying none of this works without a team. And the most important team with me is standing on this stage, my family. They've been through every single step of this with me. I love them from the bottom of my heart. I couldn't have done it without them. And it just wouldn't be the same if they weren't here tonight. So thank you all very much for believing in me, for standing with me, for doing this with me, and allowing these people to share in this beautiful and growing family that we have. Thank you to Jana and Cal and Jake and Cam. They're the lights of my life, and I love them very much. So thank you very much. To the wonderful and glorious people of District 15, to President Shirley and to Gordy and to Reg and to Kent and to Fred and all the people who dug in District 15 to deliver a mandate today for the MLA. It's the most humbling thing that has ever happened to me. I thank you very much for digging in, for everybody who's worked hard to make this happen. I promise every day, no matter where this journey takes us, that I'm the MLA for District 15 first. You know where I live, you know my number, and we're going to work hard for District 15 every day. So thank you very, very much. To the members of the PC team who were successful, the members of the PC team who didn't really quite get it done tonight but almost got over the line, you guys are the best team that I could ever have hoped for. You did an amazing job. What a great pleasure it has been for me to get to know you, to work with you, to see you in action every day, and your love of Prince Edward Island is unparalleled. And I can't wait to see what this team can deliver for Prince Edward Island. had the chance to speak briefly outside with Premier McLaughlin. He was very gracious in his congratulations to us. We had a great conversation about the transition of power and how that will take place. I want to thank Wade and Duncan and the entire team for working so hard, for always looking after Prince Edward Island first. And ladies and gentlemen, give them a round of applause because this job isn't easy. They deserve our credit and our thanks. I haven't yet spoken to Peter Bevan Baker, but I know I will shortly. I want to congratulate Peter and his growing team of Green Party members. A very impressive showing tonight, and it shows that Prince Edward Island wants the parties of Prince Edward Island to put partisan nature behind them, to work together, to do what's best for Prince Edward Island, and I'm looking forward to working with all elected officials in the legislature to make that happen, to deliver for Prince Edward Island. And throughout this race, I got to know another gentleman, Joe Byrne, the leader of the Island New Democrats, very well. I got a lot of time and respect for Joe. I admired his commitment to Prince Edward Island and his love for Prince Edward Island. I want to congratulate him tonight. I'm sorry he came up short in District 12, but we owe Joe a debt of gratitude. He's a terrific Islander. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I guess all I can say is welcome to a new day in Prince Edward Island. Welcome to a new era of island politics. Yeah. Welcome to the tremendous honor and the tremendous responsibility of governing. Welcome. You know, once again, the people of Prince Edward Island have led the way. Once again, the people of Prince Edward Island have spoken their individual and collective wisdom and truth. We have been honored by that, and now it is our mission to ensure that their wisdom and truth was not misplaced. And just forgive me if I'm a little bit overwhelmed. It's a long way from Georgetown royalty to be the premier designate of Prince Edward Island. I'm a little bit overwhelmed here tonight. You know, ladies and gentlemen, it's our mission to ensure the voice of the people of Prince Edward Island is nurtured and grown, it's cherished and respected, and reflected in an approach of government that listens, but an approach that government hears Prince Edward Islanders speak and always acts in the best interest of the people of Prince Edward Island. That's what we are going to do. You know, when I began this journey on November 1st, we said we were going to do it differently. And people said, you can't do it differently. And I said, just watch us. We're going to do it differently. We made a promise that we would do it differently, that we would lead with civility, we would lead with respect, and we made a promise to be open, to be less blindly partisan, to be accepting of good ideas regardless of where they come from. We made a promise that we would trust the institutions and traditions of democracy, and the basic justice and the basic human kindness. We did that. This team delivered that. We delivered it every day during this campaign, and we're going to deliver that every day as the government of Prince Edward Island. You know, that we made a promise that we would honor the past, but we would look to hope. We would look to openness and anticipation to the future. I invited you to join with me, and join with me you did in that promise. And the people of Prince Edward Island, you know what they said? Yes, I want to be part of that. I want to contribute to a new day and a new tomorrow, and here we are tonight celebrating that new tomorrow. And tomorrow we start our journey to fulfill that province. But tonight's a time for celebration. But tonight's also a time for remembrance. Tonight is a time to remember the sacrifices of those who came before us, who fought to protect our institutions of democracy. Tonight is also a time to remember Josh and little Oliver for all that they stood for and all the promise that they had. Tonight is about them. Let's give them a round of applause. It's about them too. You know, we talk a lot in politics about what divides us, but we've learned a lot over the last few days about what unites us. And I think what unites us makes this the best province in the world to live in, the best province in Canada, and I couldn't be prouder to stand here tonight as the Premier-elect of Prince Edward Island to lead a province that cares so much about their neighbours, about their friends, and about their family. This is the province I love. This is the province we all love. Let's be proud of this province, and let's make it the best we can make it. You know, tonight is also a time of thank yous, so I want to begin by saying thank you to the countless volunteers in our party and in all the parties who have worked so seemingly endless hours to share ideas, to develop policy, to put up signs. Reg McKinnon told me the job of the sign guy was always the best job. You put them up and you take them down. It was a full-time job this election keeping those signs up. Reg did it with a smile on his face every day. You know, to all the people who work the phones, who distribute literature, who do the canvas door-to-door, who talk to friends, I can only say from the bottom of my heart, thank you. This job cannot be done by one person. It takes a team. We had an army in this party who dug in. They delivered the seat in District 15, and they delivered the government of Prince Edward Island to the Progressive Conservative Party of Prince Edward Island. You know, tonight is also a time to say thank you to our colleagues in the other parties. Thank you to all of the candidates across Prince Edward Island who put their names forward. It takes a lot of courage to put your name on a ballot. It's not easy. Every day is difficult, but it's the most rewarding experience any Islander can do. I would encourage everybody to try this once. You get a look at Prince Edward Island that you've never seen before. No, I'm genuine in that. This is one of the most amazing callings a person can really get a chance to do. I encourage you to do it. And for all of the people who put their names on the ballot this time, thank you very much. You're all winners to me. I want to thank you very much, say thank you very much to the party leaders, to Wade McLaughlin, to Peter Bevan Baker, to Joe Byrne. Thank you very much for your courtesy, for your civility, for your respect, your leadership, and your sacrifice. Prince Edward Island needs good individuals. Those are three high-class individuals in my mind, and I was honored to share the stage with them every day. And above all else, ladies and gentlemen, tonight is a time to say thank you to the people of Prince Edward Island. Thank you so much for your keen interest in the public affairs of our province. Thank you for caring about our future. Thank you for your attentiveness, for your thoughtfulness and your wisdom. And above all else, on behalf of all the members of this party, thank you very much for the confidence you have shown in me and the Progressive Conservative team here tonight.
So you've been listening to PC leader Dennis King, a very pleased Dennis King tonight. Welcome to a new era of politics on Prince Edward Island. One of the lines he used tonight, the Premier designate winning a minority government here. Historic tonight. We're going to get final thoughts from my panelists. We've got 2 minutes to closing as we go to the hockey game, so make it get out on time. Kerry Campbell, your headlines.
Yeah, well, I mean, tonight's election delivered in spades gave us something we've never seen before on PEI. It looks like Dennis King gets to be the first party leader in island history to try to deliver on his commitments as the leader of a minority government. We're going to watch him try to assemble the support he needs to gain the confidence of the House. My job just got even more interesting watching all this unfold in PEI for the first time.
Okay, and your headline.
I see this in personal terms for both Dennis King and Peter Bevan-Baker. Both have been underestimated by pundits like me over the years. Both have delivered in spades, and they've shown that they are capable of hearing things that the talking class sometimes misses. And so to both of them tonight, it's a huge personal victory.
So yes, an historic night indeed. You know, we saw the PCs with a minority government. This is historic in the fact that we have a minority government for the first time. The green surge, we could call it. Peter Bevan-Baker feeling really good about what happened here tonight. And an emotional Peter Bevan-Baker, you know, trying to find that right tone between having a full heart, as he said, but also heartbroken because of the loss of Josh Underhay and his son in that accident. So a very emotional night overall. Lots of change, lots of us to digest. We are going to join the hockey game now in progress. Hate for Leaf fans to tell you you're down 3-1. Boston Bruins in the third. We're going to join the hockey game in progress as we say thank you for watching. Thank you to everyone behind the scenes. Thank you everyone here, to everyone at CBC, PEI and beyond. And we thank you for tuning in. Thank you especially to my panelists for all your help tonight on this desk. And with that, I say good night, PEI. When Peter Bevan-Baker